Settle in, my friend, with your blanket drawn close and the gentle hush of night surrounding you. Let your breathing find its rhythm, slow and steady, like the flow of a wide river through ancient plains. Tonight, I will guide you into one of the world's earliest great civilizations, a place of calm waters, brick-built cities, and timeless mysteries. This is a story of the Indus Valley Civilization, told softly, as by the glow of a lamp in a quiet room, where the world outside has gone still, and only the comfort of words remains. At first, you might imagine an ancient world to be distant, unreachable, fading into dust. But here comes a quiet twist. Though the Indus Valley Civilization rose and declined more than 4,000 years ago, some of the daily habits of its people still echo in the simplest parts of life today. How we gather water, how we wash, how we cook, how we weave. Their story is not only about what was lost, but about what never truly vanished. Isn't it soothing to imagine that the way you sip warm water, or the way you arrange objects neatly in your space, is somehow a whisper of continuity stretching back to them? Picture a city like Mohenjo-Daro, standing on the banks of the Indus River. The streets are laid out in a calm, thoughtful grid, each one broad enough for carts, each one aligned with care. The houses, made of baked brick, rise 2 stories high, with flat roofs where families might sit at dusk. Wells stand nearby, courtyards open to the sky. And here's the marvel. These people, for 1,000 years ago, had bathing rooms with drains, water flowing through carefully built channels, cleanliness woven into their daily rhythm. Isn't it curious and comforting to know that long before most of the world thought of sanitation, the Indus Valley people built it into the heart of their homes? Stay close, because in a moment we will step deeper into their streets. Imagine now the Great Bath, one of the most famous remnants of Mohenjo-Daro, a wide, rectangular pool lined with brick, surrounded by colonnades. Some say it was for ritual bathing, a place where water was not just for the body but for the spirit. Others suggest it was for community gathering, for rest, for connection. Whatever its purpose, the Great Bath stands as a reminder of water's central place in life. And as you listen, perhaps take a deep, slow breath and imagine yourself lowering into warm water, safe, supported, cleansed of the day's heaviness. In the distance, the soft sound of craftsmen echoes, potters at their wheels, shaping vessels with steady hands. Beads of carnelian, lapis lazuli, and jasper strung together into necklaces. Seals carved with delicate images of animals. Unicorn-like figures, bulls, elephants, each pressed into soft clay to mark ownership or trade. These objects, simple and beautiful, speak of artistry not for grand display, but for daily life. Isn't it soothing to imagine a bead, polished to a gentle sheen, held between your fingertips, carried with it the touch of a craftsman from so many centuries ago? Stay with me, because their cities were not just about grandeur, but about comfort. Imagine stepping inside a house. The floor is cool beneath bare feet, the walls smooth and steady. In the corner, jars of grain stand ready, clay vessels filled with water. A staircase rises to an upper floor, where perhaps children play or women weave cloth on looms. The smell of flatbread baking drifts from a hearth, mingling with the sharper scent of onions or garlic. Isn't it common to see how familiar it feels, how the textures of their homes were not unlike our own, warm, practical, lived in? And here's another soft revelation. While the Egyptians built pyramids and the Mesopotamians raised ziggurats, the Indus Valley people chose something different. They left us no grand monuments to kings, no towering statues, no tombs filled with treasure. Their cities speak instead of community, equality, a society that valued shared well-being over display. Isn't it comforting to know that one of the world's earliest great civilizations thrived not on conquest or show, but on the quiet rhythms of daily life, on clean water, on shared streets, on modest homes? Let's turn the lamp a little lower and drift into their markets. Imagine stalls filled with grains, barley, wheat, sesame, and baskets of cotton, soft to the touch. Merchants exchange goods not only within their cities, but across great distances. Boats carry goods down the Indus River to the Arabian Sea, across waters to Mesopotamia. Seals from the Indus Valley have been found far away in Sumer, suggesting a web of trade, of quiet exchange. Isn't it peaceful to think of such long-ago connections? People sending goods and stories along rivers and seas, weaving the early threads of globalization? Stay with me, because their mystery is also part of the calm. The Indus Valley people left no deciphered writing. Their seals bear symbols, fish, lines, trees, strange marks that scholars still cannot read. What were they saying? Was it trade? Ritual? Poetry? We do not know. And yet, this mystery feels less like loss and more like an invitation, a reminder that not all knowledge must be grasped, that some things will remain quiet, like secrets shared between the past and the stars. Isn't it soothing to rest in mystery, to let silence be its own form of story? Pause for a breath, because even their decline has its gentleness. The rivers may have shifted, floods may have changed the land, trade may have faltered. Slowly, the cities were abandoned, but not violently, not with fire and destruction, only with time's steady hand. The people moved, adapted, carried their ways into new places. Isn't it peaceful to imagine that the end of their cities was not catastrophe, but transformation, the way a river changes course, flowing onward in a new direction? And so here is a gentle promise of this hook. The Indus Valley Civilization may seem remote, but in truth it is near, in the way you wash your hands, in the way you sit to share a meal, in the way communities build for comfort. Their spirit lingers. We will step softly through their story in the chapters ahead, walking their streets, touching their vessels, listening to the quiet echoes of their lives. Together, we will discover that history, when told in whispers, is not distant at all. It is a companion, steady and soothing, like the river that gave the civilization its name. For now, rest in the thought of brick streets under moonlight, of cool water flowing in channels, of homes filled with warmth. And know that in Chapter 1, we will begin with the river itself, the Indus, lifeline of the civilization, and follow its current into the heart of their world. Breathe slowly with me now, as though your lungs are drawing the same gentle rhythm as a great river. In this chapter, we step to the edge of water, to the lifeline of the Indus Valley Civilization, the Indus River itself. Without its steady flow, there would have been no Mohenjo-Daro, no Harappa, no quiet networks of trade or streets of baked brick. The river carried not only water but time, nourishment, and meaning. And so, to begin, imagine yourself standing on its banks under a violet sky at dusk, the surface of the water smooth as silk, carrying whispers of all who live beside it. Here is a gentle revelation that ties to the promise I left you within the hook. This river is not gone. It still flows, winding to the land, though the people who first settled its banks are long since transformed. If you'd stand there tonight, under the hush of starlight, you might feel not only the cool air rising from its surface, but the presence of millennia of continuity. Isn't it soothing to realize that water is the most faithful memory, always moving yet always the same? Picture the early settlers arriving along the Indus thousands of years ago. They came with seeds in their baskets, tools in their hands, and hope in their hearts. The river spread across wide plains, flooding gently, leaving behind rich silt. Barley and wheat took root. Pastures grew green for cattle. The settlers built homes from mud brick, placing them close to the water's edge, yet high enough to stay safe from the river's seasonal moods. Isn't it calming to imagine the relief they felt when harvest first succeeded, when their children ate warm bread by the hearth, when the river gave them not just life but belonging? Stay with me, because in a moment we will look at how the river did more than feed. It shaped their spirit. The Indus taught them rhythm, sowing when floods receded, harvesting before rains returned, storing grain for seasons of scarcity. Every act was a conversation with the river, a balance of patience and trust. You can almost hear the sound of fields rustling in the breeze, farmers calling softly in a language now lost to us, the steady pulse of water in the background. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine their world as a harmony of cycles, a flow that matched the breath of the earth itself? Now, picture the river at dawn. Mist hangs low, drifting across the water's surface. Fishermen push small boats out, nets folded neatly at their feet. The wooden oars dip quietly, leaving ripples that spread like whispers. Birds stir in the reeds, their wings catching the first pale light. Women kneel at the banks, filling clay jars with fresh water, the weight of the vessels balanced expertly against their hips as they carry them home. Children splash at the edges, their laughter carrying across the water. It is not an age of kings or monuments, but of daily rhythms, soft and steady. Isn't it comforting to imagine that in their dawn, as in ours, families rose together, guided by the same sun, warmed by the same fire belonging? Pause here, because trade, too, was born from a river. Its current carried boats downstream to the sea, where goods could be exchanged with distant lands. Cotton, cloth, beads, and grain may have traveled outward, while metals and stones came back. Imagine a boat loaded with baskets of grain gliding slowly along, its sail catching the wind, the boatman humming to himself as the river carries him forward. Trade was not grand or loud, but steady and patient. Each journey another thread woven into a wide, calm web. Isn't it soothing to think of civilization not racing, but flowing, carried gently by water? Stay with me, because the river also carried stories. Though we cannot read the symbols left on their seals, we can guess that myths, songs, and rituals traveled along the same current. Perhaps they told stories of a great serpent who lived beneath the waters, or of deities who stirred the floods. Perhaps the stars reflected in the river's surface became part of their cosmology, linking heaven and earth through water. Mystery surrounds their beliefs. But what is certain is that water was sacred, not only for its use but for its spirit. Isn't it calming to imagine a people who saw the river as both life and teacher? And now, let's imagine night on the Industry. The sky deepens into velvet. Stars scattered like jewels. Fires flicker along the banks as families gather for meals. The river reflects the light, doubling every flame. You sit nearby, wrapped in a shawl, hearing the quiet lap of water against stone. Somewhere a flute plays, its notes drifting with the breeze. The river listens, holding every sound, carrying it gently downstream. Doesn't it feel as though the river itself is part of their family, present at every meal, every song, every quiet moment of rest? Pause again, for the river also held danger. Floods could sweep away crops, or leave silt too thick for planting. Yet even then, the people adapted, building higher, storing more, trusting that water, even when fierce, was also generous. Their resilience reminds us that even challenges are part of flow, that life is not about stopping the river, but learning to live with its currents. Isn't it peaceful to see their endurance as an act of trust, a surrender that is not weakness but wisdom? Stay close now, because we are nearing the close of this chapter. The Indus River was more than water. It was a pulse of civilization, the thread tying together villages and cities, families and generations, work and ritual, body and spirit. Its flow was their rhythm, its floods their calendar, its current their road. Even today, if you stand at its banks, you can hear echoes of voices long gone, whispers of continuity. And here's a promise fulfilled. In the hook, we spoke of how daily habits, washing, cooking, weaving, still carry the whispers of the Indus Valley. Now you see the source of that continuity. The river, steady as breath, patient as time. Isn't it soothing to know that as long as rivers flow, the lives of those who came before are never wholly lost? Let this chapter close like the river itself at dusk, the current slowing, the banks darkening under stars. In the next chapter, we will step into the heart of their cities, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, and wander their quiet streets, listening to the echoes of homes and markets. But for now, rest in the rhythm of water, steady and soft, carrying you toward sleep. Breathe deeply with me now, as we leave the gentle current of the Indus River and walk quietly into the heart of its cities. Tonight, we wander through Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, two of the great centers of the Indus Valley Civilization. Imagine the hush of night as we step onto wide streets, the baked brick beneath our feet still holding the day's warmth, the lamps and windows flickering softly, and the faint scent of clay, grain, and fire lingering in the air. These cities are not imagined. They truly stood here more than 4,000 years ago, organized, alive, filled with families who dreamed, worked, and rested much like we do now. Here is the quiet twist that draws us forward. Unlike many other ancient civilizations, these cities were not dominated by towering palaces or monumental temples. Instead, their most remarkable legacy lies in order and comfort. Streets laid out in thoughtful grids, houses with their own bathing areas, wells on nearly every block, and drains beneath the ground carrying water away. It is a vision of urban life that feels surprisingly modern, whispering to us that progress and care for daily living are not inventions of our own time, but have been with humanity since the earliest ages. Isn't it soothing to think that thousands of years ago, people valued clean water, private spaces, and calm order, just as we do tonight? Picture yourself entering Mohenjo-Daro. The streets run straight, meeting at right angles, wide enough for carts to pass without crowding. On either side stand rows of houses, each built with baked brick of near uniform size, a detail that reveals both organization and care. Some houses are modest, single-story dwellings. Others rise 2 stories high, their staircases leading upward to roofs where families gather in the cool of evening. Imagine walking past doorways where children's laughter spills out, past courtyards where families share meals, past windows open to the night breeze. Doesn't it feel as though these streets were designed to cradle life gently, making space for comfort and community alike? Stay close, for in a moment we will enter one of these homes. Step inside with me. The walls are solid, the floor cool beneath your feet. There is a small courtyard open to sky, where a jar collects rainwater. To one side is a bathing room, with a carefully built floor sloping toward a drain. In another corner, jars of grain stand ready, sealed against pests. The air smells faintly of baked bread, of onions and lentils simmering over fire. On the upper floor, a loom creaks softly as cloth is woven, its threads catching the light of a small oil lamp. Isn't it calming to imagine how lived in these spaces must have felt? Not distant or foreign, but warm, ordinary, and full of daily rhythms? Pause here, because beneath your feet runs something extraordinary, a drainage system. Covered brick channels carry wastewater away from homes, beneath the streets, into larger drains that keep the city clean. Wells nearly every block, providing fresh water to families. Imagine the relief of such design, the comfort of knowing that water, cleanliness, and health were cared for so thoughtfully. Isn't it peaceful to realize that the people of the Indus Valley place their trust not in grand monuments, but in systems that quietly served everyone? Now step into the Great Bath, one of the most famous structures of Mohenjo-Daro. It lies at the heart of the city, a large, rectangular pool lined with baked bricks, its edges sealed with bitumen to hold water tight. Steps descend from either end, inviting you to imagine yourself lowering into its depths. Some say it was for ritual purification, others for community gathering, a space where water cleansed not only the body but the spirit. Picture the still water at night, reflecting the moon, the silence broken only by the soft splash of movement. Doesn't it soothe the mind to know that 4,000 years ago, people gathered in quiet reverence, bound by water and ritual? Stay with me, because Harappa, too, speaks of order and life. Its streets mirror the thoughtful layout of Mohenjo-Daro, its bricks the same steady size, its drains carrying water away. Granaries stood near the heart of the city, great storage spaces where grain was collected, perhaps redistributed, ensuring that no one went without. Imagine walking past one of these granaries, hearing the rustle of grain poured into baskets, the hum of workers moving in rhythm, the scent of barley thick in the air. Isn't it comforting to think of community where food was not left to chance, but cared for as a shared treasure? And here is another gentle revelation. In all these excavations, archaeologists have found little evidence of weapons, little sign of violence or war. These cities do not tell the story of conquest, but of calm continuity. Their energy seems to have flowed into organization, trade, craft, and ritual rather than into fortresses or armies. Isn't it soothing to imagine an ancient civilization built not on domination, but on quiet cooperation, where life centered on the rhythms of water, grain, and family? Pause for a moment and picture the marketplaces. Narrow lanes open into courtyards where merchants spread out their goods, beads of carnelian and jasper, pottery painted with flowing designs, cloth woven from cotton, one of the earliest known uses of the fiber. Children peer curiously at bright trinkets. Mothers run their hands over fabric. Traders exchange words in a language we still cannot read. The air is alive with gentle bustle, but it is not chaos. It is order, life flowing steadily. Isn't it calming to imagine yourself wandering among the stalls, guided not by noise but by the soft rhythm of trade? Now, let's lower the lamp a little further and step into the quieter side of city life. In the evening, as the sun sets, families gather in courtyards. The day's work is done. Grain has been ground, bread baked, cloth woven. Men sit together, repairing tools. Women hum softly as they finish weaving. Children play with small clay figurines of animals and carts, their laughter drifting into the night. Lamps glow in niches along the walls, casting steady circles of light. The air cools, the stars emerge, and the city, though large, feels intimate, filled with a hush of community. Isn't it peaceful to know that even in great cities, life was measured in the small comforts of home and hearth? Stay close, because mystery lingers here too. Seals carved with animals and symbols lie scattered through these cities. Yet we cannot read their script. Were they used for trade to mark goods? Did they tell stories, prayers, or names? The answers are hidden. But the presence of these seals reminds us that writing, memory, and meaning were part of daily life. Isn't it soothing to accept mystery? To let unanswered questions rest like quiet shadows, adding depth rather than disturbance? And so here is the gentle promise fulfilled. The cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro do not speak to us of kings or battles, but of people who valued order, cleanliness, comfort, and community. They built not for show, but for life. Their legacy whispers in every paved street, every brick drain, every modest courtyard. Isn't it common to carry this truth with you tonight, that civilization is not always loud, but often quiet, steady, and deeply human? Let this chapter close like a city settling at night, its lamps glowing faintly, its streets hushed, its families safe in their homes. In the next chapter, we will wander more deeply into daily life, exploring the foods they ate, the tools they used, and the textures of their days. For now, rest in the calm order of their streets, and know that you are safe, carried gently by history's quiet hand. Take a long, slow breath as we step away from the brick streets of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa and into the soft heart of daily life. Tonight, we drift into the kitchens, hearths, and meals of the Indus Valley Civilization. Close your eyes, if you wish, and picture it. A clay hearth glowing gently, smoke curling upward, the steady scent of grain warming, and the familiar rhythms of people preparing food together. It is here in the ordinary comforts of meals that we meet them most clearly, not as distant figures of history, but as neighbors, as families, as human beings whose lives, in their essence, feel close to ours. Here's the twist, revealed softly in the glow of the hearth. The Indus Valley people ate foods you might recognize even now. Lentils, barley, wheat, sesame, dates, and the earliest cultivated rice, all part of their meals thousands of years ago. Imagine dipping warm bread into lentil stew, sweetening a meal with fresh fruit, sipping water drawn from a cool well. These flavors are not lost to time. They echo in the meals we still prepare today. Isn't it soothing to realize that across the vastness of history, something as simple as food binds us together? Linking your dinner table to theirs? Picture a family gathered in the courtyard of their home at dusk. A clay pot rests on glowing embers, lentils bubbling softly, their earthy aroma rising into the air. Another pot holds barley porridge, thick and nourishing. A child breaks pieces of flatbread baked against the hearth's hot surface, the crust crisp, the inside soft. Jars of sesame oil stand nearby, a shimmer of richness for cooking. Dates, sticky and sweet, lie piled on a platter, ready to be shared. As the night cools, the family sits close, eating slowly, savoring warmth and nourishment. Can you feel how timeless this moment is, how the ordinary act of sharing food becomes a thread through history? Stay with me, for the story deepens. Farming sustained these meals. Barley and wheat fields stretch beyond the cities, waving gently in the breeze. Cotton, too, was grown here. The Indus Valley was among the first to spin and weave it into cloth. Cool garments for warm days, soft bedding for rest at night. Imagine walking through these fields at dawn, dew clinging to stalks of grain. Farmers moving quietly, their hands brushing against the crops they tended. The rhythm of sowing, watering, harvesting. It was a rhythm that fed the cities. Isn't it calming to see how the steady cycles of earth and labor nourish both body and spirit? Pause here, because animals were part of this nourishment too. Cattle graze in pastures. Their milk perhaps turned into butter or curd. Goats and sheep provided meat, milk, and wool. Chickens clucked in courtyards, pecking at grain scattered on the ground. Buffalo wallowed near rivers, powerful and steady, their presence essential for plowing and transport. And in the river itself, fish darted, sometimes caught and roasted over fire. Picture these gentle presences, the animals that live alongside families, providing sustenance with quiet constancy. Doesn't it ease the mind to know that their lives, like ours, were interwoven with the companionship of animals? Now imagine the markets where these goods came together. Narrow lanes open into busy courtyards where farmers brought grain, dates, sesame, and cotton, where fishermen offered fresh catch, and where potters sold clay vessels for cooking and storage. Merchants displayed small piles of spices, mustard seeds, perhaps turmeric, adding warmth and flavor to meals. The air buzzed softly with barter and exchange, not harshly but like a hum of life. Children tugged at their parents' hands, drawn toward baskets of fruit or sweets. In the gentle bustle, the heart of the city beat steadily. Isn't it soothing to wander here in imagination, guided by scent and sound, carried by the rhythm of community? And there was craft, too, woven into meals. Potters shaped vessels for cooking and serving, round jars for grain, flat plates for bread, narrow-necked pitchers for water. Picture a woman smoothing the rim of a jar, her hand steady, the clay cool beneath her touch. The vessel she makes will hold tonight's meal, tomorrow's water, the grain that carries a family through the season. In every home, such vessels line shelves, ordinary yet vital. Doesn't it comfort you to know that in their quiet way, objects shaped by hand help nourish life? Let's step into a festival night, when food carried not only nourishment but celebration. Families gathered in courtyards, bringing their best dishes to share. Platters of barley bread, bowls of lentils rich with spice, basket of fruit, honey to drizzle over sweets. Laughter rose into the night. Drums pulsed softly. Dancers moved in circles. Lamps flickered in doorways, casting golden light across faces. The festival was more than eating. It was belonging, a weaving together of community. Isn't it soothing to picture such a gathering, warm shared in food, music, and companionship? Stay close, because mystery lingers here too. Archaeologists have found large granaries in Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, vast storage spaces for grain. Were these controlled by leaders, shared among families, or used in times of scarcity? We cannot say for certain, but their presence tells us that food was not left to chance. It was cared for, managed, prepared against uncertainty. Imagine standing in one of these granaries, the scent of grain filling the air, the sound of sacks shifting as workers carried them. Isn't it peaceful to know that even then, people planned ahead, storing comfort against the unknown? And here is another gentle thought. Meals are more than survival. They are moments of connection. Picture a child leaning against a parent as they eat, being told stories of rivers and gods. Picture friends breaking bread together, their laughter drifting into the night. Picture someone alone, eating quietly under the stars, feeling the same comfort in food that you do when you savor something warm and familiar. Across thousands of years, that connection remains. Isn't it calming to know that as you breathe slowly now, someone once the same under an Indus sky, warmed by bread and stew? As this chapter draws to a close, let the lamps dim. The family has eaten. The dishes are rinsed in water poured from a jar. The hearth glows with embers fading slowly to ash. The streets quiet as neighbors close their doors. The city settles into night, sustained by the simple grace of food and fellowship. And you, too, are sustained by the knowledge that across time, life has always found comfort in the small rituals of meals. In the next chapter, we will wander into their crafts and trades, discovering how beads, pottery, and cloth became the soul of their creativity. For now, rest in the calm warmth of their kitchens, the timeless comfort of nourishment, the steady rhythm of meals that bind us all. Breathe slowly, and let me guide you now from the hearths and kitchens of the Indus Valley into the workshops, the quiet corners where hands shape beauty from clay, stone, and shell. The cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were not only about streets and wells. They were alive with crafts, with artistry woven into daily life. Tonight, we'll sit among the artisans, hearing the faint scrape of tools, the soft clink of beads, the steady rhythm of creation that carried both purpose and grace. Here is a gentle surprise to begin with. Thousands of years before fine jewelry shops gleamed in modern cities, the people of the Indus Valley were already masters of bead making. They shaped carnelian, agate, and steatite into tiny, perfect beads, polished to a soft gleam, strung into necklaces that caught the light of fire. Picture the scene. A craftsman hunched over his work, using a slender drill to pierce a bead so small you could lose it between your fingertips. His movements are slow, deliberate, patient. Each bead is a world in itself, a fragment of earth transformed into adornment. Isn't it soothing to know that even then, people carry beauty close to their skin, carrying comfort and pride in ornaments? Stay with me, because beads were only the beginning. Potters turned clay into vessels of every shape and size. Imagine the wheel spinning gently, the potter's hand steady, guiding form out of formlessness. A tall jar for grain, a wide-mouthed bowl for water, a small cup for daily use. Designs flowed too, painted patterns of leaves, birds, or abstract motifs, brushed in deep black onto red clay. These weren't only functional. They were expressions of care. When someone lifted a painted jar to pour water, they also touched art, carrying both utility and beauty together. Doesn't it ease the heart to know that life, even in its ordinary tasks, can be made lovely? Step closer, and you'll hear the clink of shell bangles being shaped. The Indus Valley was close to coast, and from there came shells, carved into bracelets that adorned wrists. Picture the curve of a woman's arm, bangles sliding softly as she draws water from a well. The sound is subtle, a whisper of adornment, not loud but intimate. In those details, we glimpse a life not so different from ours, the desire to feel adorned, to carry with us something graceful. Stay a moment longer, and you'll see children with tiny shell bangles, laughter sparkling as bright as the ornaments they wore. And then there were seals carved from steatite, pressed with intricate designs. Animals, unicorn-like figures, elephants, bulls, tigers, appeared on their surfaces, along with mysterious script we still cannot read. These seals may have been markers of trade, tokens of identity, or perhaps even charms. Imagine holding one, its surface cool and smooth, the animal etched with precision. Doesn't it awaken a calm wonder to think of these small objects, passed from hand to hand, linking merchants, travelers, and households? The mystery of their script whispers across time, inviting us to lean closer, to listen for meanings that still rest quietly in the unknown. Pause with me here, because crafts were not only for adornment, they were for homes, too. Weaving cloth was an art of its own. Cotton, first cultivated here, became thread spun on spindles, woven into cloth that wrapped bodies with comfort. Picture women at work with spindles, fibers twisting into thread, the quiet repetition of their hands weaving rhythm into fabric. That cloth may have been plain or dyed with natural colors, perhaps indigo blue or earthy reds. Imagine lying down at night under such cloth, its fibers soft and cool against the skin, offering rest. Isn't it peaceful to think of fabric carrying comfort through time, just as it does for you tonight under your own blanket? And now, let's enter a jeweler's workshop. Stones lie scattered on a mat. Turquoise, lapis lazuli, perhaps imported from far lands. Gold glints faintly, shaped into tiny ornaments. The jeweler selects each piece, polishing, setting, stringing. These ornaments may travel, carried on trade routes stretching to Mesopotamia. Picture a merchant wearing an Indus necklace in a distant city, its beads catching firelight at a banquet. Isn't it calming to know that beauty created in one quiet workshop could journey so far, linking distant hearts across deserts and seas? Stay with me a little longer, because even toys were part of their craft. Archaeologists have uncovered clay figurines of animals, carts with wheels that turned, small whistles shaped like birds. Picture a child pulling a clay cart, its wheels rattling gently over the courtyard floor. Another child blows into a bird whistle, the note high and sweet, echoing in the evening air. Toys remind us that joy, too, was crafted, that laughter has always been part of human life. Doesn't it ease your spirit to imagine children at play, their world filled with tiny wonders shaped from clay? Now let's turn to markets where these crafts found new homes. Picture a potter arriving with freshly fired vessels stacked in straw, their surfaces warm from the kiln. A jeweler displays strings of beads that shimmer in the light. Merchants examine seals, weighing their usefulness. Women choose shell bangles, holding them against their wrists to test a fit. The market hums quietly, a tapestry of exchange, the air filled with the scent of spices and the rustle of fabric. Isn't it soothing to walk here in imagination, pausing at each stall, seeing the artistry woven into every object, and yet, beneath this artistry rests mystery. Why did the Indus Valley place such emphasis on beads, seals, and pottery designs? Were they symbols of status, offerings and rituals, or simply everyday beauty? We may never fully know. But isn't it gentle and comforting to let the mystery remain, like a candle flickering in a quiet room, inviting curiosity without pressing for certainty? Sometimes the unknown is part of the calm, reminding us that history, like dreams, holds spaces of wonder we need not solve to appreciate. As this chapter draws to its close, imagine night settling over the workshops. The potter's wheel rests, the jeweler's tools are put away, the bead maker's lamp flickers low. Crafts lie ready for tomorrow, jars to be filled, ornaments to be worn, toys to be played with, seals to be pressed into soft clay. And in the quiet, the artisans sleep, their hands at rest, their creations waiting to carry beauty into another day. In the next chapter, we will wander into their social life, how families, neighbors, and communities live together in harmony, shaping not just objects, but the bonds that sustain them. For now, let your thoughts linger on the artistry of hands, the timeless comfort of objects shaped with care, and the calm truth that beauty has always been part of human life. Breathe deeply, and let us now leave behind the workshops where beads and pottery rested, to step into the courtyards and streets where families live their lives together. The Indus Valley was not only a place of craft and trade, it was a living community, shaped by relationships, routines, and the quiet bonds of neighbors. Tonight, we will wander through their social world, as if we are guests invited to share their evening under the steady glow of oil lamps. The first gentle twist is this. Unlike many later civilizations, we do not find towering palaces or lavish monuments in the Indus Valley cities. There is no single ruler's mansion, no sprawling temple dominating the skyline. Instead, the cities appear even, balanced, with homes and workshops arranged in careful order. This suggests something remarkable, that their society may have been more equal, more community-focused than many that came after. Imagine that, a civilization thriving not because of one king's power, but because of shared cooperation. Doesn't that thought itself bring a soothing kind of peace? Now picture walking down a narrow lane at dusk. On either side are brick houses, modest but sturdy, their walls rising evenly. Some homes have 2 stories, with stairs climbing upward. Some have courtyards where families gather. A mother kneels by a small hearth, cooking flatbread. A father mends a tool. Children play with clay toys in the courtyard dust. Across the lane, another family does the same. Lamps glow in doorways, and the scent of food mingles in the air. The whole city hums like a quiet hive, each household a cell, all linked in harmony. Doesn't it feel reassuring to imagine such balanced lives, where no single home overshadows another? Stay with me, because the water system shaped this social fabric too. Every few steps you pass wells, shared by neighbors, their cool water drawn daily for cooking, cleaning, and drinking. Families meet at the wells, exchanging greetings as they fill jars. Children laugh as they splash small hands into the water. Neighbors share news and stories of harvests of distant trade, of celebrations to come. The well is more than water. It is connection, a gathering place. Can you feel the comfort of community here, where something as simple as water brings people together? Pause for a moment, because homes themselves reveal quiet care. Many had bathing areas, with drains leading out to the city's wider sewer system. Imagine a family preparing for evening rest. A child splashed clean with cool water, laughter echoing off the walls, a mother smoothing down her hair with oil, a father washing away the day's dust. Hygiene was not only survival, it was dignity, shared across households. And with it came a sense of order, of life lived not in chaos but in harmony. Isn't it calming to know that thousands of years ago, people sought the same cleanliness and comfort that you enjoy now? Let's wander into a gathering. Picture families joining together in a courtyard after the work of the day is done. They sit on mats woven from reeds, passing food, telling stories. Someone plays a simple instrument, a drum perhaps, or a flute made of bone or reed. The sound is gentle, weaving into the evening air. Children dance in small circles, while elders smile, watching. The stars emerge overhead, mirrored faintly in the dark curve of the Indus River. Belonging fills the air, the kind that arises not from monuments or rulers, but from shared life, from being together. Doesn't your heart rest easily when you picture such a scene? Stay close, because festivals brought the community together even more. Imagine a special night when streets were strung with garlands, when lamps glowed brighter than usual, when music and laughter filled the city. Neighbors dressed in their finest cloth, adorned with beads and bangles. They shared sweets, danced in circles, and told stories of gods and ancestors. Perhaps the seals with animal figures were shown in rituals, their symbols carrying meanings now lost to us. The festival was joy, yes, but it was also unity, a reminder that beyond each household lay a larger family, the whole city. Isn't it soothing to feel that pulse of community celebration, echoing across the centuries into your imagination tonight? Now picture the quieter bonds of everyday help. A neighbor lends a tool, another shares grain in lean times. Children from one family run into the courtyard of another without hesitation. Work is shared, burdens lightened. In the fields, families labor side by side, tending crops. In workshops, apprentices learn from elders, their skills passed down not only within families but across the community. This is what sustains society. Cooperation, woven so tightly that it becomes invisible like air. Doesn't it calm you to know that long before laws or hierarchies, people found strength simply by helping one another? Pause here to consider women's roles in the society. Though we cannot know every detail, the artifacts speak softly. Jewelry, seals, figurines of women with elaborate headdresses. These may suggest reverence for fertility or for the role of women in life cycles. Imagine women weaving cloth, tending hearths, shaping beads, guiding children, and perhaps leading rituals. Their presence was essential, visible in every corner of life. Isn't it gentle to acknowledge their importance, to honor the quiet power carried in their daily work? And children, picture them playing the dusty lanes, their laughter rising as they chase clay carts or blow whistles shaped like birds. They grow up surrounded by the hum of community, learning crafts, farming, or trade from their elders. Their joy is simple, and yet it is eternal. Doesn't it ease your spirit to imagine children's laughter, unchanged across thousands of years, echoing to the lanes of a city that still whispers its presence today? Stay with me, because even the way these cities ended carries lessons about community. When floods came, or when rivers shifted, the people adapted as long as they could. They rebuilt, adjusted, endured together. And when the time came that the cities could no longer be sustained, the community dissolved not in violence or fire, but in quiet dispersal. Families moved on, carrying their traditions with them into new lands. The bonds of society were not broken. They simply transformed, flowing like water into new forms. Isn't it soothing to realize that even endings can be gentle, part of life's larger rhythm? As this chapter softens to a close, imagine standing in a courtyard of Harappa at night. Families are inside, lamps glowing faintly, the air rich with the scent of cooked grain and sesame oil. The streets are hushed, the wells still. The city rests, held together not by walls or kings, but by the invisible threads of community. Neighbors, families, children, elders, living in balance. And you, too, are part of that balance, simply by imagining it, by letting their world settle into your heart tonight. In the next chapter, we will step into the rhythms of their trade, how merchants carried beads, cloth, and grain along distant routes, linking the Indus Valley to far-off lands. For now, rest in the calm of their courtyards, the warmth of their gatherings, and the peace of society sustained by harmony. Settle in, and let us drift now from the quiet courtyards of family life into the wide and gentle currents of trade. The Indus Valley was not an isolated world. It was a place that reached outward, softly but steadily, its goods and ideas flowing across rivers, deserts, and seas. Tonight, we follow the merchants, their carts creaking along dusty roads, their boats swaying gently on calm waters, carrying beads, grain, and cloth into distant lands. It is not the story of conquest, but connection, the quiet weaving of bonds across space, linking people far apart with threads of exchange. Here is a twist to carry with you. The Indus Valley, so ancient and mysterious, was part of one of the earliest known global networks. Their seals and beads have been found in Mesopotamia, hundreds of miles away, along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates. Imagine that. An Indus merchant's necklace worn in a city far to the west, its beads catching the flicker of foreign firelight. Isn't it soothing to realize that even thousands of years ago, people sought not only to sustain themselves, but to connect, to share, to trade beauty and nourishment with strangers? Picture the start of a merchant's journey. A cart stands in the courtyard, its wheels carved from wood, strong and steady. 2 bullocks are harnessed, their breath misting softly in the morning air. The cart is loaded with sacks of grain, jars of oil, bundles of cotton cloth, and small boxes of beads. A family gathers to watch as the merchant prepares to leave, offering blessings, adjusting straps, slipping a piece of bread into his hand for the road. Then, with a creak and a steady step, the cart rolls onto the city's road, beginning its slow journey outward. Can you see it, hear it? The sound of hooves, the crunch of wheels on earth, the farewell murmurs fading as distance grows? Stay with me, because rivers carried trade too. The Indus itself was a highway, winding gently through the land, bearing boats heavy with goods. Picture a wooden boat, its hull broad and flat, stacked with jars of grain and baskets of fruit. The water reflects the sky, soft ripples spreading as the oars dip slowly. Fishermen wave from the banks. Children call out as the boat glides by. The merchant sits under a simple canopy, watching the current carry him steadily toward new markets. Isn't it calming to imagine the rhythm of the river, rocking softly, guiding goods from one city to the next? Pause here, because trade was not only about goods, it was about trust. To carry beads to Mesopotamia or grain to a neighboring village required not just effort, but relationships. Seals may have been tokens of this trust, pressed into clay as marks of identity, saying, "This is mine, this is true." Imagine 2 merchants meeting in a market far from home, one offering a seal, the other nodding in recognition. A transaction is completed, not with harsh words, but with quiet understanding. Isn't it gentle to see how trade rested not only on objects, but on human connection? The calm assurance of honesty? Now, let us walk into the market itself. A wide square hums with activity. Merchants from nearby villages spread mats to display their wares. Traders from afar bring foreign goods. You smell sesame oil and spices, hear the rustle of cloth, catch the faint sparkle of beads and sun. A farmer barters grain for salt. A woman trades cotton thread for fish. A child tugs at her mother's arm, pointing to a toy car from wood. The voices blend into a soft chorus, rising and falling, steady but never harsh. The market is alive, but it is not overwhelming. It is a place of rhythm, of belonging. Can you imagine standing here, breathing it in, feeling the pulse of life carried by trade? Stay a little longer, because distant lands offered treasures in return. From the west came silver, turquoise, and lapis lazuli, stones that gleam with deep blues and greens. From the highlands came copper and tin, metals essential for tools and ornaments. From coastal waters came shells, carved into bangles and ornaments. Picture a merchant returning home, his cart heavy with these goods, his children running to meet him, their eyes widening at the sight of a gleaming stone or a shining vessel. Isn't it soothing to think of these exchanges not as transactions, but as gifts carried across space, enriching lives in gentle ways? And here's another layer of wonder. Trade brought not only goods, but stories. Imagine a Mesopotamian traveler telling tales of their great cities, of ziggurats rising like mountains, of rivers wider than the industry picture, and Indus merchants sharing in return stories of Mohenjo-Daro's wells and baths, of the endless fields of barley swaying in the breeze. Around the fire at night, these stories became treasures of their own, shaping imagination, linking people across distances. Isn't it comforting to think of history not only as objects moved, but as words carried, as voices shared in the hush of evening? Pause and imagine the road itself. Dust rises softly under hooves, the air shimmering with heat by day, cooling gently by night. Camps are made at the roadside, fires lit, bread baked, stories exchanged under the stars. Merchants sleep rolled in cloth, their carts drawn close, their goods protected. The night hums with insects, the air scented with earth and wood smoke. Journeys are slow, but steady, shaped not by haste but by patience. Isn't it restful to picture this pace of life, unhurried, where even journeys of hundreds of miles unfold step by step in quiet rhythm? Stay close, because trade was also resilience. When floods threatened fields, stored grain could be exchanged for other goods. When one crop failed, another region provided sustenance. The network of merchants was not only commerce, it was survival, safety shared through exchange. Picture two villages struck by scarcity, meeting in the middle with what each could offer. A jar of oil for a sack of grain, a bundle of cloth for dried fish. Through such exchanges, lives were steadied, hunger softened, communities bound closer. Isn't it soothing to realize that cooperation, more than power, sustained their world? And so, as we near the close of this chapter, picture the city at night after a day of trade. Merchants return, carts empty but hearts full. Beads have been sold, grain exchanged, cloth admired. The streets quiet as families gather their purchases, storing them in clay jars, hanging ornaments in their homes, weaving new stories into their lives. The lamps glow in doorways. The wells rest silent. The market square empty until morning. The hum of trade softens into sleep, as the city dreams of journeys yet to come. In the next chapter, we will step into the mysteries of their beliefs and rituals, how they sought meaning in the world, what they may have worshipped, and how symbols carved into seals whisper to the sacred. For now, rest in the calm flow of trade, the gentle rhythm of carts and boats, and the peaceful thought that across distances, people have always reached out to one another, sharing not only goods, but trust and belonging. Breathe slowly, and let us drift now from the markets and hum of trade into a quieter realm, the realm of faith, of ritual, of meaning. For as much as the Indus Valley was a world of streets, wells, and workshops, it was also a world of symbols, beliefs, and sacred mysteries. Tonight, we'll sit softly with the traces of their spirituality, not with loud proclamations or heavy doctrine, but with the whisper of seals, figurines, and quiet spaces that suggest how they saw connection to the unseen. Here's a gentle twist. Unlike later civilizations, we do not find grand temples or monumental statues dominating the Indus cities. No ziggurats rising above the streets, no colossal idols in carved stone. Instead, their spirituality seems subtler, woven into daily life, hinted at in small artifacts and recurring symbols. The sacred lived not in towering monuments, but in the quiet details of everyday existence. Isn't it soothing to think that faith, for them, may have been more intimate, less about spectacle and more about presence woven into ordinary life? Picture, if you will, a tiny seal carved from steatite. Its surface shows a figure seated cross-legged, arms resting on knees, surrounded by animals. Some scholars see in this a proto-image of a deity connected to fertility, nature, and balance, perhaps an early echo of what would later be known as Shiva. Others see a yogi, a meditative figure embodying stillness. Whatever the truth, the seal carries a sense of quiet focus, of power contained not in grandeur, but in calm. Imagine holding in your palm, the weight small, but the feeling immense. Doesn't it spark a gentle awe to know that thousands of years ago, people honored stillness itself? Stay with me, because fertility seems to have held deep importance. Small terracotta figurines of women with elaborate headdresses have been found, their shapes emphasizing life, birth, and abundance. Were these goddesses, mothers, symbols of the cycles that sustain their world? We cannot say for certain, but their presence suggests reverence of forces that bring life into being. Imagine a woman placing such a figurine in her home, offering grain or flowers, whispering hopes for children, for harvests, for continuity. Isn't it calming to see that their spirituality, like their meals, was rooted in life itself? Birth, growth, sustenance? Pause here, because water, too, may have been sacred. In Mohenjo-Daro, the Great Bath stands as one of the most striking structures, a large, sunken pool surrounded by steps, carefully sealed to hold water. It was not for ordinary bathing. Homes already had facilities for cleanliness. Instead, the Great Bath may have been used for ritual purification, for ceremonies where water washed not only the body, but the spirit. Picture the scene, lamps flickering along the walls, figures descending the steps, immersing slowly in the cool water under starlight. The surface reflects the moon, the ripples shimmer. Isn't it soothing to imagine such rituals, where water became a bridge between the seen and the unseen. Stay with me, because animals carried sacred meaning as well. On seals we see bulls, elephants, rhinoceroses, and a mysterious unicorn-like creature. Were these totems of clans, symbols of gods, or guardians of trade? The bull, with its power and fertility, may have symbolized strength and abundance. The elephant, patience and endurance. The unicorn-like figure, mystery itself, a reminder that some truths resist definition. Imagine merchants carrying such seals, believing that the animals imprinted upon them carried blessings, guidance, or protection. Isn't it gentle to think of the sacred expressed not through fear, but through companionship with animals? Pause and imagine rituals at home. A family arranges offerings on a small altar, grain, oil, flowers. They light a lamp, its flame steady in the evening air. They bow their heads, murmuring word we cannot hear, but whose intention we can feel, gratitude, hope, belonging. The children watch, learning by imitation, their small hands reaching to place petals alongside their parents. In such quiet acts, spirituality lived not in distant temples, but in courtyards, in hearths, in the intimacy of family life. Isn't it calming to know that reverence can be carried in small gestures, as close as your own breath? Stay with me, because there are mysteries we cannot solve, and that in itself is comforting. The Indus script, carved onto seals and pottery, remains undeciphered. It whispers across time, its meaning hidden, but its presence undeniable. Were these prayers, records of trade, names of gods? We do not know, yet their repetition suggests importance, a rhythm of symbols that carried weight. Imagine a scribe inscribing a seal, pressing into clay, believing that the symbols carried power beyond the visible. Isn't it soothing to let the mystery remain, to accept that not every secret must be unraveled for us to find peace in it? And consider this. Their rituals may not have been about separation from life, but about integration with it. The sacred was not removed into towering shrines. It flowed to the rhythms of water, grain, birth, and community. Their gods and symbols, whatever their names, seem to dwell in the same spaces as daily life. Picture walking through their streets. Children play, merchants barter, potters spin clay, and above it all, quiet rituals hum in the background, woven seamlessly into existence. Doesn't it comfort you to know that spirituality can live in the ordinary, as soft as breath itself? Now, let us rest in the thought of festivals. Imagine a city square lit with hundreds of oil lamps, flickering like stars brought down to earth. Families gather with offerings, musicians play softly, dancers move in circles. Grain, flowers, and beads are offered as shrines, while children laugh and chase one another among the crowd. The air is filled with warmth, not of fear, but of joy, of reverence celebrated together. Doesn't it soothe you to picture a festival where the sacred is not distant, but shared in community, in laughter, in song? As this chapter draws gently to its close, imagine a great bath at night. Its waters still, its steps empty, the lamps extinguished one by one. The city sleeps, but the sacred remains, woven into a clay figurine tucked into a corner, into the seal resting in a merchant's hand, into the whispered words of gratitude offered before bed. Their spirituality endures not in monuments, but in the softness of ordinary life, a presence as steady as water, as humble as a flame. In the next chapter, we will wander into their arts and leisure, discovering how music, dance, and play wove joy into their days. For now, rest in the calm of their mysteries, the gentle hum of symbols, and the timeless truth that the sacred need not be grand to be real. Breathe slowly, and let us step now from the sacred symbols and whispered rituals of the Indus Valley into a space of joy, where art, music, and leisure wove gentle threads through daily life. Civilizations are not only built on trade, food, or beliefs. They are built, too, on play, on creativity, on the moments when people allow themselves to smile, to dance, to rest. Tonight, we'll wander through those softer spaces, where the Indus Valley people shaped not only survival, but delight. Here is a twist to guide us. Among the ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, archaeologists have uncovered toys, carts with wheels that turn, figurines of animals, whistles shaped like birds, dice, and small game pieces. This tells us something beautiful. These ancient people valued joy enough to craft it. Childhood was not only work or preparation. It was play, laughter, imagination. Isn't it soothing to think that even thousands of years ago, children pushed toy carts across courtyards, blew into whistles, or tossed dice in games? Their laughter is timeless as the sound of children today. Picture a courtyard at dusk. A group of children gathers, crouching in the dust, small clay dice tumbling from their hands. They laugh as the numbers decide the winner, their voices rising into the evening air. One child pulls a toy cart, its wheels carved carefully, rattling softly across the ground. Another clutches a figurine shaped like a bull, its horns tiny but proud. In the background, parents smile from doorways, listening to familiar joy of play. The scene is simple, yet it carries a truth. Joy is eternal, a bridge across millennia. Doesn't it comfort you to hear their laughter in your imagination, as if carried on an evening breeze? Stay with me, because adults, too, embrace leisure. In homes and courtyards, people may have gathered to play board games with carved pieces and grids scratched into the ground. Dice found at sites suggest games of chance, perhaps played with strategy and laughter. Imagine two friends leaning over a board, tossing dice, teasing one another gently as the game unfolds. The air is relaxed, the stakes light, the pleasure in the shared moment itself. Isn't it gentle to know that the urge to play, to compete lightly, to pass time with laughter, was as real then as it is now? Pause here, because art was another form of leisure and expression. Seals carved with animals were not only functional, they were artistic, intricate, filled with imagination. Pottery carried painted designs, patterns of leaves, fish, or abstract shapes. Imagine a potter painting a vessel after it is fired, not because it must be done, but because it pleases the eye. A woman runs her fingers over the design as she fills the jar with grain, finding delight in its beauty. Isn't it calming to realize that the human impulse to decorate, to create beauty simply for its own sake, has always been part of us? And then there was music. Flutes made of bird bones have been found, suggesting that melody floated through their evenings. Picture a young man sitting in the corner of a courtyard, lifting a simple flute to his lips. The notes drift upward, soft and sweet, echoing against brick walls. Children quiet their games to listen. Neighbors pause in their tasks, the air filling with calm. Another strikes a drum, its rhythm grounding the melody. The two sounds weave together, carrying joy and serenity alike. Isn't it soothing to imagine music as soft as breath, binding the community in shared listening? Stay a little longer, because dance surely followed. Where music plays, bodies respond. Imagine a festival night. Lamps flicker, drums pulse, flutes sing, and dancers step into the square. They move in circles, hands linked, feet stamping lightly in rhythm. Their beads glimmer in the lamplight. Their garments swirl with motion. The crowd claps gently, laughter rising as the dancers spin. It is not performance for an audience. It is participation, a weaving of movement, sound, and joy. Doesn't it ease your spirit to picture such a dance? Ancient yet familiar, joy carried in motion and sound? Pause, because leisure was not only play or music. It was also storytelling. Imagine families gathered around a hearth, a parent or elder telling tales of rivers, of animals, of ancestors. Children listen wide-eyed, their imaginations painting worlds far beyond the courtyard walls. Perhaps they heard stories of gods embodied in bulls or elephants, or tales of journeys across deserts and seas. The words drift like lullabies, settling into memory. Doesn't it comfort you to know that before books or screens, stories already carried people into dreams? Stay close, because leisure also shaped identity. The jewelry we saw in earlier chapters, the beads, bangles, and ornaments, was not only adornment, but self-expression. A woman strings a necklace not only to wear, but to feel beautiful, to carry pride. A child ties a small bead to his wrist, feeling grown and adorned. These small acts of care are leisure, too, moment of pleasure, of artistry turned inward. Doesn't it calm you to realize that the desire to express beauty in ourselves is as old as civilization itself? And now, let's picture the city at rest. The day's work is done, the fields quiet, the workshops hushed. Families gather in courtyards, children with toys, adults with music and games. The air fills with laughter, song, the soft rattle of dice. the high note of a whistle shaped like a bird. Lamps glow in doorways, casting light across faces. The stars shine overhead, mirrored faintly in the river. Leisure is not wasted time. It is life. Breathe fully, joy carried alongside survival. Isn't it soothing to see their lives not as endless toil, but as balanced, filled with moments of delight? As this chapter closes, picture yourself sitting among them. A child presses a clay toy into your hand. A musician offers to play another song. A neighbor smiles, inviting you into the circle. You are not separate from them. You are part of their leisure, their joy. And as you close your eyes, you carry with you the truth that even in the most ancient of cities, joy and play were woven into every day, as essential as food or water. In the next chapter, we will step into their architecture and engineering, exploring how they build homes, streets, and baths with precision and care. For now, rest in the soft glow of their leisure, the calm rhythm of their games and music, and the timeless comfort of laughter shared under the stars. Close your eyes for a moment and let your breath grow slow. Tonight we wander through the streets of the Indus Valley once more, but not to listen to flutes or watch the children's games. Instead, we lean in close to the bricks, to the walls, to the careful hands that build entire cities from river clay. The people of the Indus Valley left us no kings carved in stone, no battles etched into monuments, but they left us something quieter and perhaps even more profound. Cities so thoughtfully designed, so practical and elegant, that their ruins still whisper care of planning, of the desire to live in comfort and safety. The twist that waits here, early in our story, is this. While many civilizations rose around palaces or temples that dominated the skyline, the Indus Valley cities did not. Instead, they built around balance, utility, and community. No towering palace defines Mohenjo-Daro. No pyramid rises in Harappa. Instead, it is the homes, the wells, the drains, the baths, the details of daily life that stand out. Isn't it calming to realize that the civilization chose not to glorify power alone, but to shape their world around the needs of their people? Picture yourself walking softly down a broad street in Mohenjo-Daro. The bricks beneath your feet are baked, firm, aligned with precision. The street is wide, straight, and drains run along its edges. These drains are covered with brick slabs you could lift away for cleaning, and they lead to soak pits that catch waste. Thousands of years ago, the city thought about sanitation, about keeping water fresh, about living clean. As you breathe slowly now, imagine how astonishing it feels to know that such engineering was dreamt of so early in human history. Stay with me, because the homes you pass are just as remarkable. They are built from uniform bricks, fired in kilns to create a consistency rare in the ancient world. Some homes are small 1 or 2 rooms, while others stretch into larger courtyards. You pass a doorway and glimpse inside. A set of stairs rises quietly to an upper floor. A small well sits in a corner, dug deep and lined with bricks. A bathroom space drains neatly into the street system outside. Imagine how it must have felt to step into a private bath in the evening, pouring water over your skin while the city around you rested. Does it feel soothing to know that even then, people found comfort in cleanliness, in the calm ritual of bathing? Pause here, because in the heart of Mohenjo-Daro lies one of the most famous structures, the Great Bath, a large, rectangular pool built of bricks, coated with bitumen to keep it watertight. Its steps descend gently into cool water. It is surrounded by small rooms, perhaps for changing, and larger halls for gatherings. We cannot know for certain what took place there. Perhaps ritual bathing, perhaps festivals, perhaps quiet moments of purification. But as you picture the still water reflecting the sky, imagine people entering silently, washing themselves, stepping out renewed. The Great Bath, even in ruins, radiates calm, like a temple not to gods but to water itself. Stay with me here, because this pool whispers across the ages about the human desire to feel both clean and connected. Now turn the lamp a little lower, because the city itself was divided into 2 parts, the citadel and the lower town. The citadel rose on an elevated platform, its walls strong, protecting granaries, workshops, and public structures. The lower town spread beneath it, neatly organized in a grid of streets, homes, and wells. From above, it would have looked like a woven cloth, each street a line, each block a careful square. Isn't it gentle to imagine such order? A city not sprawling chaotically but aligned with thought, like a quilt laid out for its people. As we walk further, notice the wells. At Mohenjo-Daro alone, hundreds of wells dotted the city, most built for neighborhoods, many even within individual homes. Water was not something you had to walk miles to fetch. It flowed through the very heart of their lives. Picture yourself lowering a clay pot into the cool darkness of a brick-lined well, hearing the splash as it fills, lifting it with ease, carrying it to your home. Such small comforts shape their lives. Isn't it soothing to imagine a society where water was so carefully planned for, where every home might feel refreshed and sustained? Stay with me, because the granaries tell another story. Large brick platforms held wooden structures where grain was stored, protected from damp and pests. Air flowed between the platforms, keeping the harvest dry. Imagine the relief of a farmer seeing his grain stored securely, knowing it would last through the seasons, feeding the community. In these granaries, we see not just food but foresight, the gentle hum of organization. Doesn't it ease your mind to think of people who worked not only for today, but for tomorrow as well? Let's pause again and consider the bricks themselves. Every brick, whether in Harappa or Mohenjo-Daro, follows the same ratio, length to width to height, carefully measured, across hundreds of miles. Builders agreed upon this standard, shaping homes, drains, walls with the same proportions. This uniformity whispers of cooperation, of shared vision, of a civilization tied together not by kings, but by agreed order. Imagine running your hand along one of those bricks, feeling its straight edge, its sun-warmed surface. Thousands of years later, it still fits perfectly against its neighbor. Isn't it calming to think of how quietly enduring such order can be? Now breathe deeply, because beyond function there was also beauty. Some homes carried niches in their walls, spaces for lamps to glow softly in the evening, courtyards filled with air and light, and stairs wound upward to roofs where families might sit under the stars. The architecture was not only about survival, it was about life lived gently, fully. Picture yourself seated on a rooftop at night, the city humming below, lamps glowing in niches, stars shining above, the bricks beneath you still warm from the day, the air cooling softly. Can you feel how safe, how balanced such a world might seem? Stay with me a little longer, because as remarkable as these cities are, they carry mystery too. We do not know why they built so uniformly, why they valued cleanliness so deeply, why they avoided building monumental palaces. We can only wonder if their priorities lay in balance, in health, in quiet dignity. That mystery is part of the calm, part of what lulls us as we imagine their streets. We may never know, but we can walk them in our dreams, step by step, brick by brick. As this chapter closes, picture yourself at the Great Bath once more. The water is still dark under the night sky. A single lamp flickers in a niche, its reflection trembling on the surface. You sit on the steps, the stone cool beneath you, your hands trailing in the water. Around you, the city rests, wells silent, drains empty, courtyards quiet. Yet the care that built this place hums softly, reassuring you that even thousands of years ago, people longed for safety, for order, for comfort. And in that longing, they built cities of extraordinary calm. Next, we will walk into their trade again, but this time to the lens of how architecture shaped exchange, granaries supporting trade routes, streets guiding markets, workshops humming in the city blocks. But for now, stay in the quiet of the Great Bath, your breath slow, your body light, and your mind soothed by the still brilliance of their engineering. Let your breathing find its rhythm calm and steady, as we step now into flow of exchange that carry the lifeblood of the Indus Valley Civilization. In the last chapter we lingered among their architecture, the streets, the baths, the wells, the granaries. Tonight, we walk through those same streets, but notice what filled them. Not only people, but goods, sound, scents, and stories of trade. Trade was not merely commerce here. It was connection, a weaving of rivers, seas, and lands into a tapestry of shared life. And within this tapestry, every bead, every jar, every bolt of cloth carried whispers of journeys far beyond the city walls. The twist that greets us here is simple yet quietly profound. The Indus Valley people were among the first in the world to establish long-distance trade networks. stretching not only across their own wide land but as far as Mesopotamia. Imagine that thousands of years ago, boats laden with goods may have sailed down the Indus River to the Arabian Sea, crossed waters, and arrived at ports where people spoke different languages, wore different clothes, and yet understood the meaning of exchange. Isn't it soothing to imagine the human desire for connection reaching across such distances, carried not by conquest, but by trade? Picture a morning in Mohenjo-Daro. The streets awaken as traders roll carts toward the market squares. The air fills with the creak of wooden wheels, the lowing of bulls pulling loads, the rustle of baskets being shifted. In one stall, a potter lays out jars freshly fired, their painted rims still faintly warm. In another, a jeweler strings carnelian beads into necklaces, the stones glinting softly in the rising sun. Across the square, traders pile sacks of grain, bricks of salt, baskets of dates. The marketplace hums not with chaos, but with a gentle rhythm, each voice part of a wider song. As you inhale slowly now, imagine the scent of spices, the earthy smell of grain, the faint tang of clay jars, all mingling in the warm air. Stay with me, because trade was not only within the cities. Beyond the market squares lay workshops where goods were prepared for journeys farther afield. Artisans carved seals with animals and symbols, not only for beauty but to mark ownership, to ensure trust in distant markets. These seals, made of steatite, etched with care, fire to last, were found in Mesopotamian cities like you are, carried across lands and seas. Picture a trader in Mesopotamia turning over a small seal carved with a unicorn-like figure, pressing it into clay, and knowing it represented a distant partner in the industry. Doesn't it calm you to realize how long human beings have trusted one another across space? Not through spoken words, but through symbols carefully shared? Let's pause at the riverbank, because here the story widens. The Indus River was not just water, it was a highway. Boats, flat-bottomed and steady, glided along its currents. Imagine sitting at the edge of the water at dusk, watching as boats approach, laden with goods. Their hulls creak softly, ropes groan as they are tied to wooden posts. Men unload baskets of cotton cloth, jars of sesame oil, bundles of beads. In return, perhaps copper from far-off mines, or timber floated down from the north, or shells from the shores, arrive. The river carries not only goods but stories, encounters, and trust. Isn't it soothing to picture trade as a flowing river, binding lives together in quiet continuity? Stay with me, because cotton deserves a gentle moment of its own. The Indus Valley is believed to be one of the first places where cotton was cultivated, spun, and woven. Picture a loom set up in a courtyard, threads stretched taut, a weaver's hands moving back and forth with unhurried rhythm. The cloth that emerges is light, breathable, perfect for the heat. Traders fold these bolts of cotton, pack them carefully, and send them toward distant shores. Imagine the wonder of a Mesopotamian trader unfolding cloth soft as breath, marveling at its texture. Doesn't it ease your mind think of such small, tender luxuries traveling across the world so long ago? Now let's turn down a quieter street, where bead workshops hum softly. Beads of carnelian, lapis lazuli, agate, and shell were crafted here, drilled with tiny holes, polished until they gleamed. Imagine an artisan seated cross-legged, working by lamplight, turning a small stone again and again, smoothing it until it shone. A child nearby watches, holding a finished bead to the light, marveling at its glow. These beads traveled across seas, adorning people far from their place of origin. Isn't it gentle to picture how one small piece of beauty could travel farther than the maker ever did, carrying the spirit of their craft to strangers? Pause again, because balance was at the heart of their trade. Archaeologists have found carefully made stone weights, cubes of precise sizes, standard across the civilization. Traders used these to measure grain, cloth, and goods, ensuring fairness. Picture two men in a market weighing out a sack of wheat, the stones clicking softly as they are placed on a scale. Both men nod, trust affirmed not by words but by balance, by fairness embodied in stone. Isn't it calming to realize that even in ancient times, fairness was not left to chance? It was crafted, standardized, honored. Stay with me, because trade carried not only goods, but ideas. Through contact with Mesopotamia, with regions of Iran and Central Asia, the Indus Valley people must have heard new stories, seen new objects, tasted new foods. Imagine a small child tasting a fruit brought from afar, sweet and strange on the tongue, or a craftsman turning over a foreign tool, considering how it might be adapted to his own work. These quiet exchanges shape the civilization just as much as bricks and wells. Isn't it soothing to think of cultures meeting not through conflict, but through curiosity, through exchange? And yet, as calm as this trade feels, there is mystery too. The seals, the goods, the contacts, all clear, but what words they spoke, what prices they set, what promises they made, we do not know. Their script remains undeciphered, their records silent to us. Still, the evidence of their goods found far away is enough to tell us. They were connected, trusted, respected. Perhaps the silence is part of the calm. It leaves us to imagine, to fill in their conversations with whispers of cooperation. As we close this chapter, picture yourself standing at the market at dusk. The day's trade winds down, goods tucked away, carts rolling home. A jeweler ties a string of beads into a pouch. A potter covers his jars. A farmer counts his grain. The air cools, and lamps begin to flicker in niches. Across the square, a musician lifts a flute, and the notes drift softly as the market quiets. You stand with them, not only as an observer, but as someone folded into their circle of exchange, part of their trust, part of their calm. Next, we will step into their farming and food once more, not the fields we have glimpsed, but the meals themselves, what they cooked, how they ate, how they found pleasure in food and drink. For now, let yourself rest in the hum of trade, the soft clink of beads, the creak of carts, the hush of boats at the riverbank, carrying goods and dreams to the wide, waiting world. Settle deeper into your blanket, and let us drift into the warm heart of the Indus Valley kitchens and hearths. We have walked their markets, admired their trade, listened to their music, and touched their bricks. Tonight, we pause with the simplest yet most intimate part of life, food. For food is not only survival, it is comfort, memory, and joy. In the Indus Valley, meals stitch together family life, nourish bodies, and tie community to the rhythm of soil and season. The soft twist here is this. Though their grand cities impress us with baths and drains, it is their cooking fires, clay ovens, and shared meals that bring them closest to us. Archaeologists, sifting through fragments of charred grain, pottery, and seeds, have uncovered the menus of thousands of years ago. Wheat and barley, lentils and peas, sesame and mustard, dates and melons, all familiar foods that could sit easily on our plates today. Isn't it calming to realize that the flavors of their kitchens echo into ours, linking us in a chain of nourishment that is never broken? Imagine waking in Mohenjo-Daro to the faint smell of bread baking. In courtyards, women kneel beside clay hearths, shaping dough with hands dusted in flour. The bread is flat, round, simple, baked on hot stones or in clay ovens. Children hover nearby, waiting for the first warm piece. Across the city, this same ritual repeats, the scent of grain mingling with the morning air. As you breathe slowly now, picture the soft crackle of firewood, the rustle of grinding stones, the first taste of warm bread shared before the day begins. Stay with me, because beyond bread there was richness. Grains were ground and cooked into porridges, lentils simmered into stews, vegetables roasted or boiled. Picture a clay pot bubbling gently on a fire, filled with lentils flavored with mustard seeds. A woman stirs slowly, her bracelet clinking against the rim of the pot, steam rising around her face. The meal is humble, yet nourishing, flavored with seeds pressed for oil, perhaps sweetened with a spoonful of honey. Isn't it soothing to imagine such simple, sustaining dishes filling both body and spirit? Now pause, because fruits sweeten their lives as well. Date palms line the fields, and baskets of sticky sweet dates pass through homes and markets. Imagine a child climbing a tree, reaching for a cluster of ripened fruit, then running home with sticky fingers and a grin. Melons and berries grew in fields and gardens, carried to tables in clay bowls. These small bursts of sweetness were treasured, shared at festivals, or eaten under the shade of a tree. Isn't it calming to picture that joy, so familiar to us still, of biting into fruit warmed by the sun? Stay a little longer, because drinks, too, carry their comforts. The people of the Indus likely brewed barley into beer, a mild drink enjoyed at gatherings. Picture a group of neighbors seated in a courtyard at twilight, clay cups in hand, sipping and laughing softly. A pot of barley drink is passed around, its earthy flavor warming as lamps flicker nearby. The mood is relaxed, the days were forgotten, the night welcomed with ease. Doesn't it soothe you to think of them ending their day not with grandeur, but with companionship? A drink shared beneath the stars? And spices. How they must have lifted their meals. Mustard, turmeric, ginger. Seeds and roots that survive in traces suggest their food carried warmth and depth. Imagine a stew fragrant with ginger, a sauce tinged golden with turmeric, a paste of sesame seeds spread on warm bread. These flavors were not harsh, but grounding, earthy, connecting people to soil and season. Isn't it gentle to imagine their kitchens filled with the same aromas that might drift from ours today? Pause with me, because meals were not only about ingredients, but about vessels. The pottery of the Indus Valley was fine, carefully shaped, often painted with patterns. Picture a family seated cross-legged in a courtyard, clay bowls before them, each vessel holding bread, stew, fruit. The bowls are simple, yet decorated, beauty woven into the act of eating. A jug of water stands nearby, its painted rim catching the lamplight. Doesn't it calm you to know that they valued not just the food itself, but the grace of how it was held and shared? Stay with me, because food also marked festivals and rituals. Imagine harvest celebrations where granaries overflowed and meals were shared widely. Fires burned brightly, pots bubbled with grain and meat, musicians played flutes as dancers moved. Dates were passed hand to hand, bread stacked high, cups filled and refilled. The air carried laughter and song, and the feast was not about individuals but community, gratitude, abundance. Isn't it soothing to picture such a gathering, food binding people in joy under the night sky? Let us walk now into a quieter meal. A family sits in their courtyard at dusk, lamps flickering in niches. The mother ladles stew into bowls. The father tears bread. The children share dates. Their voices are low, soft with the end of the day. A breeze drifts through, carrying the scent of sesame oil. The meal is not lavish, but it is enough, and in that enough lies peace. Picture yourself seated with them, bowl warm in your hands, the flavors simple and grounding. Isn't it calming to imagine belonging in such a circle, the timeless comfort of eating together? Pause again, because food was also medicine. Herbs and seeds, ginger to soothe, turmeric to heal, mustard to warm, were likely used not only for flavor but for care. A mother stirs turmeric into warm milk for her child, soothing a cough. A healer crushes ginger into a paste, applying it gently to an aching joint. Meals were healing acts, daily moments of wellness built into life. Isn't it gentle to realize that the kitchen was as much a place of care as of cooking? And finally, let us picture the end of festival night. Fires burn low, bowls empty, laughter fading. The scent of roasted grain and sweet fruit still lingers in the air. People stretch out under the stars, bellies full, spirits light, grateful for food, for company, for the rhythm of the seasons that brought them abundance. As you breathe slowly now, imagine that feeling, the ease of a meal shared, the calm of being fed, the joy of community. Doesn't it soothe you, even across millennia, to rest in their satisfaction? As this chapter closes, carry with you the truth that the Indus Valley's greatness lay not only in its streets and drains, but in its kitchens and hearths. Food was life, but it was also love, connection, and memory. Tomorrow, we will walk again into their crafts and artistry, how they shaped clay, carved stone, spun thread into patterns of beauty. But tonight, rest in the warm scent of bread, the sweetness of dates, the comfort of stew, and the calm glow of lamps around a courtyard table. Breathe in slowly and let your body sink deeper into calm as we cross into the world of artistry and craft in the Indus Valley. We have shared their meals, walked their streets, and watched their markets. Now, with a soft lamp glow around us, we will linger in workshops and courtyards where hands shaped clay, carved stone, and spun thread into beauty. For civilization speaks not only in its buildings or its trade, but in the small objects that carry its soul, crafted with patience, decorated with care, made as much for joy as for function. The gentle twist we discover here is this. When archaeologists uncovered the ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, they did not find towering monuments to rulers or armies, but instead a quiet abundance of beads, toys, seals, pottery, and figurines. Their legacy lies in the intimate, everyday objects of life. Isn't it soothing to realize that the Indus Valley chose to express its greatness not in monuments of intimidation, but in humble, lasting works of craft? Things meant to be touched and used? Picture a potter's courtyard at dawn. A wheel spins slowly as hands shape wet clay, pulling it upward into tall jars, smoothing the sides with steady strokes. Around the potter, shelves display vessels drying in the sun. Bowls, cups, jars, their surfaces painted with simple designs: fish, leaves, waves, geometric lines. A child dips a finger in paint and imitates the designs on a shard. The potter laughs gently, guiding the tiny hand. The wheel hums on. The day begins. Doesn't it calm you to imagine that scene, the timeless cycle of hands and clay? Earth and fire? Stay with me, because pottery was not only practical. Its shapes, its painted patterns, carried artistry. Many jars bore motifs of fish, peacocks, or people leaves. These designs spoke of life close to nature, of rivers and trees, of creatures admired. Imagine holding a clay bowl in your hands, its rim decorated with fish that seemed to swim around the edge. Every meal from that bowl carried not only nourishment, but beauty. Isn't it soothing to think that even in daily life, their eyes rested on art? Pause here, because jewelry and beads tell another story. In workshops across the cities, artisans worked with carnelian, lapis lazuli, agate shell, and faience. Beads were drilled with tiny holes, polished until they glowed. Some were simple spheres, others etched with white designs, still visible after millennia. Imagine the patience required, turning a bead in hand, smoothing it, drilling with bow drill, one slip away from breaking. Yet bead after bead emerged, strung into necklaces, anklets, bangles. Women wore them. Children played with them. Traders carried them across seas. Isn't it gentle to picture such small works of beauty, each carrying a story? Stay close, because seals, those small carved tablets, are among the most striking crafts of the industry made of steatite, carved with animals and mysterious script. They served as stamps for trade and tokens of identity. Picture an artisan seated with a block of stone, carving the fine lines a unicorn-like figure, horns curling gracefully. Beneath it, he etches symbols whose meaning we still do not understand. The seal is polished, pressed into clay, leaving a crisp impression. Thousands of years later, the mark remains sharp. Isn't it calming to think of such permanence, of messages we cannot read but can still admire? Now imagine stepping into a jeweler's corner. Bright beads lie sorted in bowls. Red carnelian, deep blue lapis, pale shell. A necklace hangs half-finished, threads of cotton holding alternating stones. The jeweler hums softly as he works, fingers nimble, eyes focused. A child watches, dreaming of one day wearing the finished piece to a festival. The beads will catch lamplight. The necklace will be treasured. Doesn't it soothe you to picture the quiet dedication of this work? Beauty created bead by bead, patient as breath? Pause once more, because figurines also filled their lives. Small terracotta animals, bulls with movable heads, birds with painted wings, tiny carts, speak of both toys and symbols. Imagine a child holding a clay bull, pushing across the courtyard, its head bobbing with each step. Or a woman placing a figurine of a mother goddess on a shelf, a symbol of fertility and life. These figurines remind us that art was not distant. It was woven into play, into faith, into daily moments. Isn't it gentle to picture hands shaping such small forms, filling homes with both joy and meaning? Stay with me, because textiles too carry their artistry. Cotton, spun into thread, woven into cloth, dyed with colors from plants and minerals. Imagine a loom set up in a shaded courtyard, thread stretched taut, a woman passing the shuttle back and forth, cloth slowly forming. The fabric is soft, striped with faint colors, light enough for the heat. She folds it with care, places it in a basket. Later, it may be worn at a festival or traded across the seas. Doesn't it calm you to picture the quiet rhythm of weaving, the gentle gift of cloth? And here is a detail worth lingering on: faience. This glazed material, blue-green like turquoise, was used for beads, amulets, and ornaments. Its shimmering surface caught the eye, glowing in the light of fire and sun. Picture a craftsman shaping faience into small beads, firing them carefully, holding up the finished work to admire its glow. A woman wears them around her wrist. The beads cool against her skin. Such shimmering pieces brought color into their world, a sparkle of beauty amid brick and clay. Isn't it soothing to imagine such small luxuries, ancient yet familiar? Pause, because artistry was not only about objects, but about harmony, in the uniformity of their bricks, in the order of their weights, in the proportions of their seals. We see a love of balance, of design. Their art was not chaotic, but measured, calm, symmetrical. Picture a pot decorated with lines, so even they seem drawn with a ruler, a seal carved with animals perfectly centered, a bead drilled so straight it seems impossible without modern tools. Their artistry was precision wrapped in beauty. Doesn't it comfort you to know that even then, people sought order and elegance together? As this chapter draws to a close, imagine walking through a workshop-lined street at dusk. Lamps flicker in niches, casting light on potters smoothing jars, jewelers stringing beads, weavers folding cloth. Children play with clay toys, their laughter mingling with the steady hum of craft. The air is rich with clay dust, with the scent of dyes, with the warmth of fire. And you, too, are part of it, your hands shaping, your eyes admiring, your spirit calmed by the artistry around you. Next, we will step into their systems of measurement and trade again, exploring how their careful weights, measures, and organization allowed these crafts to travel far and wide. For now, rest in the glow of their creativity. The painted bowls, the carved seals, the strung beads, the woven cloth, all soft testaments to the timeless calm of human craft. Settle in deeper now, breathing slowly, as we wander together into a quieter but deeply meaningful layer of the Indus Valley Civilization. Their love of order, their measures, their silent systems of balance. For while we have marveled at their markets, their pottery, their feasts, and their toys, none of those could thrive without structure. Tonight, we pause not in the hum of a marketplace nor the glow of a festival, but in the calm precision of weights, measures, and standards that bound the civilization together. It is soothing, in its own way, to notice how their greatness rested not in flamboyance, but in quiet regularity, the sort of invisible fabric that holds life steady. The twist to guide us early here is this. While other ancient civilizations proclaimed their power in massive monuments or dramatic inscriptions, the Indus Valley revealed its brilliance in uniformity. Bricks fired to the same proportions across cities, weights cut to precise ratios, measures replicated in faraway workshops. All whisper a shared system, a consensus that endured across hundreds of miles. Isn't it calming to imagine that a civilization might choose harmony over spectacle, a steady rhythm over a trumpet's fanfare? Picture yourself in a small shop in Harappa. A merchant pours grain from a jar into a balance scale. On one side of the wooden beam, he places a grain. On the other, a cube of carved stone. He adds a second cube, then a third, until the beam balances perfectly. The weights are smooth, their edges precise, their surfaces worn with years of handling. Each cube belongs to a carefully defined system, binary ratios, consistent across cities. The merchant nods, satisfied, and ties the grain in a basket. The buyer smiles, trust affirmed in the fairness of stone. As you breathe slowly now, picture the quiet clink of the weights, the hum of trade guided by balance. Stay with me, because these weights were not haphazard. Archaeologists have uncovered hundreds, their sizes aligned to a system of doubling and halving. Small cubes of a few grams, larger blocks of many kilograms, all proportioned with astonishing consistency. Imagine the patience required to shape each one, to measure, to check, to ensure harmony with the rest. This is not the work of chance. It is the work of a civilization that valued order so deeply that even its smallest units were aligned. Isn't it soothing to think of people creating fairness not through force, but through standardization? Pause here, because bricks tell the same story. Across Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Lathal, and beyond, bricks were made to the same ratio. Length twice the width, width twice the height, a 4 to 2 to 1 proportion. Imagine walking into a kiln yard where workers mold clay into neat rectangles, pressing them with care. Rows of bricks bake in the sun, then in the heat of kills, glowing orange before cooling into perfect, sturdy blocks. These bricks are not merely building material. They are symbols of agreement, of shared values. When laid side by side, they form walls straight and strong, streets aligned, drains sealed. Doesn't it comfort you to realize that such quiet consistency endured across a civilization so wide? Stay with me a little longer, because their measures reached even further. Archaeologists believe they had units for length, rulers carved with tiny, evenly spaced markings. One ivory scale from Lhothow measures out intervals astonishingly close to our modern centimeter. Imagine a craftsman holding that ruler, marking out beads, aligning seals, ensuring precision. His hand steady, his eyes intent, his work made easier by the assurance that the ruler he holds matches others across the land. Isn't it calming to know that such order existed thousands of years ago, guiding artisans with the same quiet precision we still value? And then there is water. Standardization extended into their wells, their drains, their baths. At Mohenjo-Daro, wells are built in near-identical shapes, brick linings fitted with the same proportions. Drains covered with slabs are sized to match the streets. Everywhere we look, order hums quietly beneath the surface. Picture yourself lifting a brick slab over a drain, the opening below neat, the water flowing smoothly away. This was not just engineering. It was a rhythm, a pattern that repeated across cities like a heartbeat. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine walking through a place where everything fits together, designed for ease and cleanliness? Pause, because the standardization also built trust. When a trader carried bead from Lhothow to Mohenjo-Daro, he could weigh them on scales, confident the stones matched. When a farmer sold grain in Harappa, he knew the buyer's measures aligned with his own. This invisible thread of order allowed trade, allowed cooperation, allowed trust to flourish. Isn't it gentle to think that fairness, so often fragile, could be held steady in stone and brick in measure? Stay close, because we must linger on the seals once more. These were not only art, they were tokens of identity, part of the system of order. A merchant pressing his seal and declare affirmed his ownership, his responsibility, his part in the network. The seal, small and delicate, carried trust across cities, across seas. Picture one being pressed into wet clay. The impression crisp, the animal clear, the symbols below silent but certain. That mark traveled farther than the merchant himself, a silent witness of order. Doesn't it calm you to imagine such trust carried in such a small, enduring form? Let us walk now into granaries again, but with this lens. Grain, stored on raised platforms, ventilated by gaps, measured with standard weights, distributed with fairness. Picture the harvest being brought in, weighed stone by stone, recorded not in writing we can read, but in systems we can see. The farmer walks away assured, the granary keeper satisfied, the community safe. Food, the most essential element of survival, wrapped in fairness. Isn't it soothing to realize that their systems were not only clever but compassionate, designed to protect the many? Pause, because their order extended beyond material things. The grid-like streets of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa reveal a vision of harmony. Broad avenues intersecting at right angles, neighborhoods arranged logically, water and waste carefully guided. This was not mere chance. It was planning, a deliberate choice to live within order. Imagine standing at a crossroads in Mohenjo-Daro, streets stretching straight in four directions, drains running beneath, lamps glowing in niches, houses aligned. You are surrounded not by chaos, but by calm geometry. Doesn't it ease your spirit to picture such balance in a world so ancient? Stay with me, because in this order lies a deeper beauty. The Indus Valley people did not shout their greatness through kings or armies, but through systems that made life livable for all. Their monuments were not towering statues, but drains that worked, wells that lasted, bricks that fit, weights that balanced. Their legacy is one of quiet efficiency, shared standards, and fairness. Isn't it gentle and strangely comforting to think of a civilization choosing such a path? As this chapter draws to its close, imagine yourself seated in a quiet workshop at dusk. Before you lies a set of stone weights, arranged in neat order, their edges catching the last light of the day. Behind you, bricks cool in stacks, their proportions perfect, On your lap rests a ruler. Its markings fine, its surface smooth. You run your fingers along it, marveling at the precision. Outside, the city hums with calm. The streets aligned, the drains flowing, the wells steady. You feel the harmony all around you, a civilization built not on conquest, but on quiet order. Next, we will step into a spiritual world once more, where symbols, rituals, and beliefs wove another kind of order, less visible, but just as important. But for now, rest in the stillness of their measures, the quiet clink of stone weights, the soft glow of symmetry, and the reassurance that even in the most ancient of times, fairness and balance shaped human life. Now, let us draw the blanket a little closer and turn the lamp lower, because this chapter asks us to enter a quieter, more mysterious side of the Indus Valley world. We have walked their streets, touched their bricks, weighed their goods, but the question that lingers in the hush of their ruins is, what did they believe? Spiritual life often leaves fewer traces in pottery or drains, but the Indus people left us signs, symbols pressed into clay, ritual spaces, sacred animals, that whisper faith of unseen order. Tonight, we'll follow those whispers slowly, softly, until they form something like a lullaby of belief. The gentle twist I promised appears here. While we cannot read their script, we can sense their spirituality, not in words, but in symbols. The Indus people spoke their devotion in seals of horned beasts, in patterns of circles and trees, in figurines that may have represented mothers, fertility, or protective spirits. Isn't it calming to imagine a civilization where faith was not declared in loud sermons, but in small, humble signs that fit in the palm of your hand? Picture a quiet workshop at twilight. A craftsman carves a seal of steatite, carefully pressing the shape of a bull with sweeping horns. Below it, he etches symbols, signs we cannot yet read. He presses the seal into damp clay, lifts it, and sees the impression crisp and neat. This is more than art. It is a ritual act, embedding belief in the flow of daily trade. Perhaps the bull was sacred, a guardian of strength, a symbol of fertility. As you breathe slowly now, let yourself imagine the soft repetition of carving, pressing, believing. Stay with me, because many seals carry not just animals but strange composite figures. Some show a figure seated cross-legged, surrounded by animals, perhaps a proto-form of a god of nature. Others reveal trees with figures beneath them, as if the tree itself was sacred. These images suggest a spirituality rooted in the everyday. Animals that sustained life, trees that offered shade and fruit, symbols that connected earth and spirit. Isn't it soothing to think of a faith woven so closely into the textures of daily life? Let us pause at Mohenjo-Daro's great bath, that mysterious pool of baked brick, sealed with bitumen to hold water. Archaeologists believe it may have been used for ritual cleansing, not for leisure. Imagine the quiet of dawn as water ripples in the pool, priests or townsfolk stepping gently into its depths, letting the cool water wash over them. It was not grand like temples of Egypt, nor towering like Mesopotamian ziggurats, but modest, intimate, communal. Doesn't it calm you to picture belief expressed not in towering stone, but in shared water, cleansing body and spirit alike? Now breathe slowly as we look at the figurines. Small terracotta models of women with wide hips, adorned with jewelry, their forms exaggerated in fertility. Scholars wonder if these were images of a mother goddess, symbols of abundance, of life, of cycles renewed. Imagine one of these figurines sitting in a household shrine, lit by a small lamp, the family whispering prayers of gratitude or hope. These were not idols of fear or grandeur, but of nurture, of life-giving power. Isn't it reassuring to think that people, thousands of years ago, sought comfort in the same gentle cycles of birth and growth? Stay close, because the animals matter deeply too. Bulls, elephants, tigers, and rhinoceroses appear again and again. Each may have carried spiritual weight, perhaps totemic, perhaps symbolic of qualities admired. Picture an evening where a storyteller points at the seal of an elephant and reminds listeners of patience, wisdom, longevity. Another night, the tiger's image warns of strength and balance. These were not written sermons, but visual parables, guiding belief in silence. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine spirituality carried in pictures rather than words? Gentle reminders pressed into clay? And then the trees. Seals often depict a people tree, its heart-shaped leaves arching like a canopy. Beneath, worshippers kneel or animals gather. The peepal tree still carries sacred significance in South Asia, a continuity that may stretch all the way back to the industry imagined standing beneath its broad shade, the rustle of leaves above, the sense of connection to earth and sky. In that quiet, you feel the sacred presence, not through doctrine, but through living nature. Doesn't it comfort you to know that faith can be found in the simple act of standing under a tree? Let us wander now through the city's courtyards, where household shrines may have glowed faintly in lamplight. A family sets a bowl of grain before a figurine, lights a small flame, and whispers words we cannot recover. These small rituals, multiplied across thousands of homes, wove a fabric of shared belief. There were no vast temples dominating skylines, but quiet altars in kitchens, courtyards, and workshops. Isn't it peaceful to think of faith practiced so gently, so close to daily life? Stay with me, because some seals depict creatures that do not exist. Unicorn-like animals with a single horn, fantastical and elegant. These may not have been literal beasts, but symbolic, perhaps emblems of unity or mystery. Imagine the awe of a merchant pressing a unicorn seal into clay, leaving behind not just a mark of trade, but a reminder of the unseen, the imaginative. The Indus Valley shows us that spirituality was not only about what could be seen, but also about dreams and symbols. Isn't it calming to realize that imagination itself can be sacred? Now pause, because their faith extended into death as well. Burial sites reveal careful arrangements, graves with pottery, beads, and tools placed beside the body. These offerings suggest a belief in life beyond, or at least in honoring the journey of the soul. Picture a family lowering a loved one into a brick-lined grave, placing a necklace of beads, a jar of food, a vessel of water. The air is hushed, the gesture tender. Death in their eyes was not an end but a passage. Isn't it gentle to imagine a culture that met death with offerings of care and continuity? As you breathe slowly now, reflect on how different this is from the empires we often hear of. No towering temples, no armies enforcing doctrine, no grand inscriptions declaring gods. Instead, the Indus Valley expressed spirituality in seals, figurines, trees, baths, and small household rituals. Their faith was woven into life itself, modest, quiet, and intimate. Isn't it soothing to think of a spirituality so gentle, so deeply human? Let us close this chapter sitting again at the edge of the great bath. The stars are reflected in the water. The brick walls are cool to the touch, and a faint breeze carries the scent of night blossoms. Perhaps thousands of years ago, someone sat here too, breathing slowly, finding peace in the water's stillness, in the rustled leaves, in the quiet symbols that surrounded them. Faith does not need words here. It lives in the silence, in the rhythm of water, in the comfort of shared ritual. Next, we will move quietly into the domain of their daily tools and crafts once again, for the hands that carved seals and molded figurines also made the instruments of survival. But for now, rest in the gentle hush of their unseen faith, a spirituality spoken not with sound but with silence, not with towers but with symbols. Now we arrive at a gentle place in our wandering, where faith gives way once more to the steady rhythm of hands at work. The Indus Valley people were not only builders of great baths and carvers of seals, but also makers of tools, vessels, ornaments, and countless everyday objects. In these simple creations, we find artistry as much as utility, and when you picture them by lamplight or in the hush of dawn, their tools seem almost a whisper of the people who shaped them. Tonight, let us move slowly through their world of craft, pausing with each detail, breathing in the softness of work that was both ordinary and sacred. Imagine first the potters will turning, steady, unhurried, like the rhythm of breath itself. A lump of clay is placed in the center, damp and pliable. Fingers press gently, the wheel spins, and the form rises. A jar, a bowl, a vessel. Each curve is smooth, symmetrical, precise. The Indus people love fine pottery, red slip with black geometric designs. Some pots bear circles, others delicate lines or plant motifs. Picture the craftsman holding the vessel up to the light. The clay still damp, the shape perfect. Stay with me here. This was more than pottery. It was art carried into every meal, every sip of water, every shared moment of the hearth. Now, quietly, let us step into the smithy. Bronze glows in the furnace, copper and tin blended carefully. With tongs, a smith draws the molten metal and pours it into a small mold. When cooled, it becomes a blade, an axe, or perhaps a delicate chisel. The edges are sharp, but the forms are graceful. Imagine running your hand along the smooth haft of a tool, the way it balances perfectly in the palm. These were not crude instruments, but carefully engineered, as if beauty and function were one. Doesn't it soothe you to know that even in tools, there was harmony? Stay with me, because jewelry gleamed in their workshops too. Beads of carnelian, lapis lazuli, and agate were drilled with such precision that even modern jewelers marvel at the skill. Picture a bead maker hunched over a small stone, rotating a slender drill, patient, steady. Hours pass. The hole deepens. The bead is strung, and at last a necklace shines in the sun. Bracelets of shell, bangles of bronze, ornaments of gold. These adorn not just the elite, but many people, suggesting that beauty was shared widely. Isn't it comforting to think of a society where adornment was part of daily joy, not just privilege? Now breathe slowly as we pause with their weights and measures. Cubes of chert, carefully cut, each representing standard units, speak of remarkable precision. Merchants place them on balance scales, ensuring fairness in trade. Imagine the scene. A quiet stall in a marketplace, a tray of beads weighed against stone cubes, the balance settling evenly. Trust was built on these little tools, and trust itself became part of the craft. In a world where we often think of chaos, the Indus Valley reminds us of order, of fairness, of balance. Doesn't it calm you to know that honesty was built into the very tools of trade? And then the carts. Small terracotta models of wheeled carts survive, suggesting full-size ones carried goods across the land. Picture wooden wheels rolling along dusty streets, oxen pulling loads of grain, pottery, and cloth. The cart creaks softly. A child sits beside the driver, watching the wheels turn. These carts were tools of movement, of connection, linking city and countryside. In their simplicity, they whisper of journeys made not in haste, but at the pace of oxen, steady and sure. Isn't it soothing to imagine travel measured in slow turns of wooden wheels? Stay with me, because toys were also crafted with care. Miniature animals, rattles, and whistles of terracotta show that play mattered too. Picture a child holding a small clay bull, its head bobbing on a pivot, laughter bubbling in the courtyard. Another child spins a toy cart, wheels clicking softly. These were not grand tools, but tools of joy, of childhood. Isn't it gentle to think that across the centuries, children have always found delight in simple playthings shaped by loving hands? Now let us look again at the crafts of stone. Artisans shipped flint blades, drilled holes with precision, polished stone into weights or beads. Each strike of the chisel echoed through workshops, measured, practiced, certain. Stone tools lasted long, and their durability speaks across millennia. Imagine a craftsman at dusk, tools neatly arranged, each piece carrying the memory of use. Doesn't it reassure you to think of continuity, of objects meant to endure quietly across time? Pause with me at the looms. Though the cloth itself is decayed, spindle whirls and impressions in clay tell us of weaving. Cotton was grown, spun, and woven here, one of the earliest uses of cotton in the world. Picture a woman at the loom, thread stretched, shuttle passing back and forth, the rhythm steady, like a heartbeat. The fabric grows beneath her hands, soft and strong, ready to clothe her family. Isn't it soothing to imagine the hush of weaving, threads joining to form warmth and comfort? Stay close, because all these crafts, pottery, beads, tools, cloth, were not just separate acts. Together, they wove the texture of Indus Valley life. They made meals easier, journeys smoother, adornment lovelier, trade fairer, play joyful, and faith tangible. Their tools were not only for survival, but for beauty, fairness, and connection. Doesn't it calm you to realize that the small tools of life were held in such care? Now breathe in slowly, for we will close this chapter in a quiet workshop at dusk. The potters will stop spinning. The furnace fires low. The bead maker sets aside her drill, and the weaver folds her cloth. Outside, the sky darkens. Stars begin to glow, and the city hums softly. The tools rest now, as do the hands that made them. Tomorrow, they will be lifted again to shape clay, metal, stone, and thread. But tonight, they rest, and in their rest, we hear the heartbeat of a civilization that found beauty in utility, harmony in craft, and peace in the steady rhythm of creation. And now, gently, we'll carry this feeling into the next chapter, where we will step into their marketplaces once more, not only to see what they made, but how they shared it. For trade, like craft, was a thread that bound the Indus people together. Let us turn the lamp a little lower now and follow the quiet hum of footsteps into the heart of Indus Valley trade. You may remember how carefully their tools and crafts were shaped: pottery, beads, cloth, and bronze. But tools alone are not enough. They must be exchanged, carried, trusted between people. And so tonight, we will wander through their marketplaces and along their trade routes, listening to the soft chorus of barter, the rustle of cloth, the gentle clink of beads and copper. If you let your imagination rest here, you'll feel how the Indus Valley was not an isolated world, but a connected one, bound by pathways of exchange that carry goods, ideas, and quiet relationships. Picture yourself stepping into the marketplace at Mohenjo-Daro on a warm afternoon. The streets are straight and clean, lined with stalls shaded by cloth awnings. The smell of baked grain drifts from one corner. The shine of pottery catches your eye at another. A merchant lays out jars with black-painted designs, each vessel gleaming softly in the light. Children wander close, touching terracotta toys, their laughter blending with the low murmur of trade. You can almost hear the gentle bargaining, not in shouts but in measured tones, as beads and weights are set upon balance scales. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine commerce carried out not in haste but with fairness, calm and steady? Stay with me, because here a bead merchant arranges strings of carnelian, lapis lazuli, and agate, each bead drilled with patient skill, each necklace glowing like captured embers. A woman pauses to admire them, her fingers brushing the cool stone. The merchant places a weight on one side of the scale, beads on the other, and the balance tips, then steadies. This is more than a transaction. It is a moment of trust, a shared rhythm of honesty, ensured by the standard weights. Isn't it comforting to know that trust was built into the very act of trade, written not in words but in stone cubes and steady hands? Now turn slightly, and you'll find baskets of grain piled neatly, barley and wheat from the fertile fields. Farmers bring their harvest, exchange it for cloth or copper. The smell of earth and husk lingers, blending with the faint aroma of cooked bread from nearby ovens. Trade here is not about wealth but balance. Grain for beads, cloth for pots, copper for food. A cycle as natural as the seasons, binding city and countryside together. Doesn't it calm you to think of a world where trade mirrored nature's own quiet cycles? But their trade stretched beyond the city. Follow me softly to the edge of town, where carts creak as they prepare for longer journeys. Oxen stand ready, their breath slow, their hides gleaming in the sun. Drivers load jars of grain, bundles of cloth, baskets of beads. The wooden wheels turn, steady and sure, carrying goods along dusty tracks that stretch into the horizon. At each step, goods flow outward and new treasures flow inward. Imagine the rhythm of hooves, the wheels' soft creak, the call of a driver urging his oxen gently forward. Isn't it soothing to picture movement at such a steady pace, unhurried and sure? Stay with me, because those paths led far. Archaeologists have found Indus seals as far away as Mesopotamia, across deserts and seas. Imagine a merchant from Harappa traveling west, his goods loaded onto carts, then onto riverboats, then onto ships. Weeks turn to months as he journeys, exchanging beads and cotton for silver, tin, and wool. When he arrives in distant lands, he presses a seal into clay, marking goods with symbols we still cannot read. And there, in a faraway market, another merchant holds an Indus bead up to the light, marveling at its polish. Doesn't it soothe you to think of quiet connections spanning vast distances, linking civilizations not with war, but with trade? Now let us pause at the rivers, because water was the lifeline of exchange. Boats of wood, narrow and steady, carried goods up and down the industry. Imagine one gliding at twilight, its cargo hidden under woven mats, the oars dipping in and out of water, each stroke soft and steady. The river carries the boat as stars begin to shine, the current whispering against its hull. Trade by river was not just efficient, it was peaceful, turning waterways into living veins of connection. Isn't it calming to picture commerce carried by water's gentle pull? And then, beyond the rivers, the sea. Along the coast of Gujarat, near Ladhal, the Indus people built docks and warehouses. Ships were loaded with beads, cotton, and pottery, bound for distant shores. Imagine standing on the shore at dawn, the air filled with salt and mist, sails rising like pale wings against the horizon. Merchants wave farewell. The sea carries them outward, and with them, the quiet spirit of their civilization. Isn't it soothing to imagine trade as a voyage, slow and steady, guided by tides and stars? Stay close, because the marketplace was not only about goods. Ideas flowed here too, styles of pottery, symbols carved on seals, techniques of metallurgy, even stories carried by travelers. In every exchange, there was not just trade but conversation, quiet bonds between people of different towns and lands. Picture two merchants, one from Harappa, one from a distant village, sharing a meal of flatbread and lentils after a long day of barter. They speak softly, exchange news, perhaps even laughter. Isn't it common to think that trade was also friendship, a thread binding people together across distance? Now breathe slowly as we step back from the bustle. Imagine the market emptying at dusk, stalls closing, carts rolling homeward. The smell of grain fades, lamps flicker in courtyards, and silence begins to cover the streets. The beads rest in baskets. The weights lie stacked neatly. The carts stand idle. Trade has paused, but tomorrow it will begin again, as steady and natural as breath itself. Doesn't it soothe you to know that life flowed with such gentle rhythm, day after day? And so, as you rest now, think of the Indus Valley not only as a place of bricks and drains, but as a living network of exchange. Goods flowed outward, pottery, beads, cotton, and treasures flowed inward, metals, wool, stories, and perhaps even ideas of gods. In this way, the Indus Valley was never alone, but always part of something larger, a web of quiet connection that stretched across land and sea. We will close this chapter sitting once more in the twilight market, the air cooling, the stars rising overhead. A merchant locks his chest of beads, covers it with cloth, and extinguishes his lamp. The night grows still, oxen breathe softly in their stalls, and somewhere a river murmurs beyond the city walls. Trade has ended for the day, but the promise of tomorrow's exchange lingers like a lullaby in the air. And in our next chapter, we will turn inward again into the homes themselves to see how these goods found their way into daily life. The bowls on the table, the beads around the neck, the cloth on the body. For in those small details, we will find the quietest truths of all. V, let's turn the lamp a little lower and draw the blanket closer around us, because in this chapter we slip away from the noise of the markets and the slow rhythm of the oxen carts. Tonight, we enter the intimacy of the Indus Valley homes. These were not palaces of kings nor temples of priests, but places of cooking, resting, laughter, and sleep. To know a civilization, you must know its households, and in these homes we discover the gentle details that made life safe, warm, and familiar. Imagine standing at the threshold of a modest house in Mohenjo-Daro. The doorway is narrow, the walls of baked brick, the street outside quiet after a day of trade. Inside, a small courtyard opens, where light filters down. The air smells faintly of grain and smoke. Children's voices echo softly, and a clay lamp flickers on a ledge. This is the heart of the Indus world. Not its docks, not its granaries, but the quiet rooms where families live their days. Doesn't it soothe you to picture history not in battles or rulers, but in ordinary kitchens and courtyards? Stay with me, because these homes were carefully planned. Narrow lanes led to neat houses, often with 2 or more rooms. Some even rose to a second story, with wooden stairs creaking gently as people climbed. Floors were packed clay or brick, swept daily to keep dust low. Against the walls stood storage jars, tall and round, filled with barley, lentils, and wheat. Imagine running your hand along the cool surface of one of these jars, hearing the faint rattle of grain inside. Isn't it calming to think of safety stored in clay, a pantry of comfort built into the walls? And then the hearths. Small fire pits or brick platforms, blackened from years of use, stood ready to cook the family's meals. Picture a woman kneeling beside one, fanning a small flame, setting flatbread on a hot stone. The smell of grain roasting drifts through the courtyard, mingling with spices, perhaps mustard seeds, perhaps herbs we can only guess at. Children sit nearby, waiting for the bread to cool, their laughter blending with the crackle of the fire. Doesn't it warm you to imagine meals shared not in grandeur, but in the steady rhythm of fire and bread? Now breathe slowly as we look toward the bathing spaces. Many homes had small rooms with drains, connected to the great city sewers. Imagine a man pouring water from a jar over his shoulders, the runoff slipping into the drain, leaving him clean and refreshed. Hygiene was not a luxury, but an everyday rhythm. The sound of water splashing was as familiar then as it is to us now. Isn't it soothing to think of life flowing with such practical grace, where even cleansing was folded gently into daily life? Stay with me, because beyond function there was beauty. In these homes, ornaments were worn daily, beads, bangles, and pendants. A woman might sit in the courtyard stringing carnelian beads, her hands moving slowly, her children watching. A man might adjust a bronze bracelet before leaving for the market. These were not rare treasures locked away, but adornments woven into ordinary days. Doesn't it comfort you to know that beauty was not separate from life, but part of it, as natural as breath? Now picture the evening. Lamps are lit one by one as the sun sets. Small clay vessels filled with oil glow in corners, shadows stretching softly across walls. A child curls up under a cotton cloth. The mother hums a lullaby, and outside, the city grows quiet. Through narrow windows, the stars can be seen. Perhaps an elder tells a story, voice low, about animals or gods, while children drift asleep. Isn't it soothing to think of bedtime in those ancient homes? So familiar and safe, so much like our own? Pause with me here, because the rooftops offered another layer of life. Flat roofs, cooled by evening breezes, were places to gather. Families might spread mats, sit under the moonlight, share stories, or simply rest. Imagine lying back, the brick warm beneath you, the night sky endless above. The air smells faintly of baked earth, the sound of the city below softened into silence. Isn't it calming to picture sleep under stars, rooftops as bedrooms of the night? But homes were not only shelters for families. They were connected to community. Narrow alleys allowed neighbors to greet one another, to share water, to lend tools. A woman calls softly to her neighbor, asking for grain. A man borrows a hammer for repairs. These exchanges were small, but they built bonds stronger than stone. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine a city not as walls and bricks, but as families interwoven by kindness? Stay close, because even in death, the household remained important. Some graves have been found near homes, suggesting that memory lingered close. Offerings were placed beside the departed, pots, beads, sometimes food. Death did not sever ties but deepened them, keeping ancestors near. Imagine lighting a small lamp in memory, flame flickering in the night, the family pausing to remember. Isn't it comforting to think of love extending quietly beyond life, held within the walls of home? Now let us pause in silence. The room is dim, the fire is low, the jars are full, the family rests. Tools lean against the wall, cloth folds neatly on a shelf, beads lie coiled in a bowl. This is not a palace, yet it is more enduring than many. It holds warmth, safety, and memory. In these homes, civilizations were not declared but lived, breath by breath, meal by meal, night by night. And so, as we close this chapter, imagine once more the soft rhythm of life in the Indus Valley household. The clink of pots in the kitchen, the laughter of children, the hum of stories, the hush of sleep. Civilization may rise and fall, but these small details endure. They soothe us because they are familiar, because across time, the home has always been a place of comfort. In the next chapter, we will step back outside, into the open fields once again, to see how farming, animals, and land supported all this domestic life. For behind every home was a field, and behind every meal, a harvest. But tonight, linger in the lamplit room, hear the whisper of the flame, and rest in the peace of a household long ago. Let us step softly now beyond the lamplit rooms of the Indus homes, through narrow lanes, and out toward the open fields where the true foundation of their life awaited. Tonight, in this gentle wandering, we will walk the farmlands, hear the slow turning of water channels, and watch the patient labor of oxen beneath the wide sky. For in the soil and the rivers lay the rhythm that sustained the people, a rhythm as steady as breath itself. Farming was not just survival. It was a quiet dialogue with earth, water, and season, one that echoed in every jar of grain, every loaf of bread, every lamp lit at night. Imagine first the fields at dawn. A faint mist drifts low, the sun still pale against the horizon. Farmers step into the furrows, their feet cool against the damp soil. In their hands are wooden plows, drawn by oxen whose breath rises in steady clouds. The plows cut through earth softened by seasonal floods, leaving dark lines ready for seed. The sound is not loud but rhythmic. The scrape of wood, the rustle of oxen, the quiet encouragement of the farmer. Doesn't it soothe you to think of work guided not by machines or haste, but by patience, step by step? Stay with me, because the Indus farmers grew much more than grain. Wheat and barley filled the bulk of their jars, but they also cultivated lentils, peas, sesame, and cotton. Picture a farmer scattering seeds by hand, the grains falling like soft rain onto dark earth. He does not hurry, for the season allows its own pace. Later, green shoots will rise, whispering in the wind like a chorus of life. Imagine walking between those rows, the plants brushing against your palms, the air filled with the smell of growth. Isn't it calming to picture abundance rising so quietly from the soil? Now breathe slowly as we turn toward the water. The Indus River and its tributaries carried not just boats but nourishment for the land. Farmers dug channels to guide the floods, to irrigate their fields. Picture the slow trickle of water slipping into a furrow, darkening the soil, soaking the roots. Children might follow the flow with sticks, tracing patterns in the wet ground. Water was not feared but welcomed, managed with quiet skill. Doesn't it comfort you to think of people who learned to live with their river, not against it, guiding its gift gently into their fields? Pause for a moment with the animals, for they too were companions in this work. Oxen pulled the plows, cows gave milk, goats browsed along field edges, chickens clucked in courtyards. The animals were not only resources but rhythms, lowing at dawn, hooves pressing the soil, wings fluttering as the day began. Picture a boy guiding his oxen to the fields, his hand resting gently on their flank, his voice soft, steady. Isn't it soothing to imagine such a bond, where work was done not with force but with trust? Stay close, because cotton deserves a special whisper. The Indus Valley may have been among the first to spin cotton into cloth, a gift from the plant to human hands. Imagine fields dotted with cotton bolls, white against the green, ready for harvest. Women sit together in the courtyard, picking seeds from a fiber, rolling threads between fingers, preparing them for the loom. The fabric they weave is soft and breathable, worn daily, close to the skin. Doesn't it calm you to realize that from this land, one of humanity's gentlest comforts began, cloth that warms, covers, and soothes? Now let us wander to the edges of the fields, where storage pits and granaries wait. Farmers bring their harvest in baskets, pour the grain into great jars, seal them with clay. Picture the sound of grain pouring, like rain against stone, filling containers slowly, evenly. Each jar becomes a promise. Food for the winter, safety for the family, continuity for the city. The granaries themselves, vast and airy, stored wealth not in coins or jewels but in food. Isn't it reassuring to think of wealth measured in nourishment, in loaves and seeds rather than in gold? Pause with me at midday when the sun stands high. Farmers rest beneath the shade of peepal trees, their oxen chewing slowly beside them. From a basket, bread is shared, lentils eaten, water poured from a clay jar. The air hums with insects. The river glimmers nearby. Work pauses and life feels balanced. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine labor that included rest, a rhythm of work and pause that mirror the day itself? Stay with me a little longer, because the farming cycle carried into festivals. When crops ripened, families gathered, offerings made at small shrines, songs sung in courtyards. Perhaps a bowl of grain was placed before a figurine of a goddess, a lamp lit in thanks. These were not grand spectacles, but intimate gestures of gratitude, the field and the hearth linked by ritual. Isn't it common to think of celebrations rooted not in conquest, but in the harvest's quiet abundance? Now breathe deeply as evening falls. Farmers walk back through the lanes, oxen slow, baskets lightened. In the fields, the air cools, The soil holds the warmth of the day. Fireflies flicker at the edges of irrigation channels. Frogs croak in the water. The land rests now, as do the people. Tomorrow it will stir again, but for this night, silence covers it like a blanket. Doesn't it comfort you to know that even the fields had their time of rest, their own sleep beneath the stars? And so, as this chapter closes, think of the Indus Valley as a conversation with earth and sky, water and seed, animal in hand. Farming was not loud, not rushed, but steady, gentle, enduring. Each harvest was a hymn, each furrow a line of verse, each grain a note in the song of survival. In their fields, the Indus people found balance, and in their balance they found peace. In the next chapter, we will follow another path into the rhythms of their trade once again. But this time not along rivers and seas, but through the inland caravan routes, the slower journeys of land, where carts creaked and the horizon stretched endlessly. But before we walk there, let us linger here among the furrows, listening to the quiet breath of earth itself. Let us loosen the pace of our footsteps now and follow the slow creak of wooden wheels leaving the city gates. We are walking with the caravans, those quiet threads of movement that stretched across the land, binding city to city, village to village, even civilization to civilization. In this chapter, we won't rush. We'll travel as they did, measured, steady, pausing often to notice the textures of the journey. These were not hurried expeditions, but long walks across plains and ridges, with carts loaded and oxen breathing in soft rhythm. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the sound of wheels on dust, a lullaby of movement that carried the Indus Valley outward into the wider world. Picture the caravan as it forms in the morning light. Merchants and farmers gather outside Mohenjo-Daro's walls, oxen harnessed to wooden carts, their hides gleaming after water was poured over them at dawn. Each cart is simple but strong, its wheels solid, its axle creaking softly. Goods are loaded, baskets of grain, jars of oil, bolts of cotton cloth, strings of beads carefully wrapped in cloth. The drivers adjust ropes, tie knots, speak quietly to one another. Children watch, curious, before running back to their courtyards. The sun rises higher. The first cart rolls forward, and slowly the others follow. Doesn't it soothe you to picture this procession, not in haste but in patience, beginning a journey as natural as the flow of a river? Stay with me, because the path they follow is no straight line. Dirt roads weave between fields, then open into wide plains. Along the way, they pass irrigation channels where farmers wave, women bend to wash clothes, children splash in shallow pools. The caravan pauses here, perhaps filling jars with water, sharing greetings with neighbors, exchanging news. The oxen drink deeply, snorting softly, their tails flicking against flies. Then, once again, the carts creak onward, the sound blending with birdsong overhead. Isn't it common to think of travel unfolding in small stages, with pauses for breath and kindness? As midday approaches, the land grows warmer. The caravan halts beneath the shade of trees, peepal or tamarind, their leaves rustling in the hot breeze. Drivers unroll cloths, sit together, and share food, flatbread, lentils, perhaps dried fruit carried for the road. They dip water from jars, pass it from hand to hand. The oxen lie down, chewing slowly, eyes half closed. For a moment, the road is still. Work is paused, but life continues gently, in conversation and shared meal. Isn't it soothing to picture travelers resting under a tree, the world quiet around them, time stretched out like the horizon? Now breathe slowly as we imagine the caravan resuming, wheels turning, dust rising in low clouds that catch the afternoon light. Beyond the farms lie villages, and the caravan enters one. Children run alongside the carts, laughing, curious about the goods carried. A villager steps forward, offering milk in a clay cup, in exchange for grain or cloth. Here trade is small, intimate, a handful of goods exchanged with words of trust. The caravan lingers, then moves onward, leaving the village quieter but connected, woven into a web of movement. Doesn't it comfort you to think of roads as threads of relationship, stitching places together in gentle ties? Stay with me, because some journeys stretch farther. There were routes that wound through dry lands, where rivers no longer flowed, and the caravan pressed on with careful planning. Water jars were sealed tightly, food rationed, rest taken often. At night, when the day's heat cooled, travelers sat in circles, lamps lit, telling stories beneath the stars. Imagine lying on the ground, the sky immense above, constellations glittering like beads strung across the dark. The oxen rest nearby, their breathing steady, the cart silent until morning. Doesn't it soothe you to picture sleep taken under such a vast sky, the road stretching quietly ahead? And then the caravan might reach another city, Harappa or Lathal, or distant villages we may never know by name. At the city gates, seals are pressed into clay, marking goods with familiar symbols. Merchants greet one another, examine beads, pottery, and cloth, weighing them against stone cubes. The rhythm of exchange continues, fair and measured. Some goods remain, some are taken, new ones loaded. In this way, the caravans did not only carry objects but returned with new gifts. Tin for bronze, wool from uplands, ideas carried in memory. Isn't it calming to realize that movement was not only outward but circular, returning always with something fresh? Now, let us pause in the evening again, as the caravan halts on the edge of a river. The carts are drawn into a circle, oxen unyoked, fires lit for cooking. Smoke rises gently into twilight. A pot simmers with lentils. Bread is baked on flat stones. Laughter drifts in the night. Merchants share stories, perhaps about distant lands, perhaps about the day's encounters. A song may be sung, low and steady, carried by the breeze. In these moments, the journey itself becomes home, the caravan a moving village. Isn't it soothing to think of belonging found not in walls, but in companionship on the road? Stay close, because the roads were more than physical. They were paths of culture. Along these routes, styles of pottery spread, designs on seals traveled, methods of metalwork shared. Even beliefs may have moved, ideas of sacred trees, sacred animals, passed gently from one community to another. Each cart carried not just goods, but symbols, knowledge, memories. Isn't it comforting to imagine that the slow creak of wheels also carried stories, weaving human lives together across distance? Now breathe deeply as we picture the caravan returning home. The oxen step more slowly now, their loads lighter, their hooves dusty. The city walls come into view, lamps glowing in courtyards as evening falls. Families wait at gates, ready to greet the travelers. Goods are unloaded, stories exchanged, hugs shared. The city hums softly again, enriched not only by the objects returned but by the journeys completed. Doesn't it calm you to picture the cycle closing, outward movement flowing inward like the tides of sea? And so, as we close this chapter, think of the caravans as lullabies of distance. Each creak of wheel, each step of ox, each pause beneath trees was a note in a song of movement, steady and enduring. The Indus Valley was not only a place of homes and baths, of seals and beads, but also a place of journeys. Journeys taken without haste, journeys that stitch together the fabric of life. In the next chapter, we will pause again within the cities, but this time at their gathering places, open courtyards, communal wells, and wide streets where people met, spoke, and wove the social bonds that made community possible. But before we turn there, linger with the caravan tonight. The stars high, the road quiet, the wheels at rest until dawn. Come with me now, and let us slow our steps as we enter once more into the city. We have walked the caravan roads, followed the carts, and rested beneath the stars, and now the gates of the city open again before us. This time, instead of slipping into quiet homes or pausing by the great baths, let's turn toward the spaces where people gathered, where neighbors spoke, and where the bonds of community were gently woven. These were the heartbeats of the city, though they made no sound louder than conversation, laughter, and the splash of water in wells. Imagine yourself stepping into these places, the air warm but stirred by movement, the atmosphere filled with calm familiarity. The Indus Valley cities were designed with remarkable care, as you may remember, with streets laid out in neat lines and drains beneath the surface carrying water away. Within this design, spaces open into courtyards, wider streets, or communal wells where people gathered each day. These were not bustling squares of noise, but rather quiet centers of shared life, softened by the rhythms of daily routine. You might picture yourself walking down a straight street, High brick walls on either side, then suddenly emerging into a broad space where the air feels wider and the murmur of voices rises like a gentle tide. Doesn't it soothe you to step from narrow quiet into shared openness, as though the city itself is breathing with you? Stay with me, because in the center of these gathering places stood wells. They were stone-lined, neat, reliable, and often used by entire neighborhoods. Imagine women lowering clay jars into the cool depths, drawing water with steady arms, droplets shining in the sunlight. Children peer over the edge, laughing as the bucket rises. Men approach with jars, too, speaking with one another about crops, weather, or trade. The well is not only a source of water, but of connection. Around it, people linger, exchanging news, trading small favors, sharing warmth. Isn't it calming to imagine a circle of neighbors gathered in friendship around water? The most elemental gift? As you linger, notice the texture of the courtyard beneath your feet. The ground is worn smooth by countless steps. Around the edges, benches or low walls provide places to sit. Someone sells fruit here, perhaps melons in season, their scent sweet in the air. Another offers bread, baked in a small oven nearby. These gatherings are not markets of chaos, but gentle familiarity, where people trust and greet one another. A child runs past, his laughter trailing like a ribbon, while his mother smiles and continues her conversation. Doesn't it ease you to imagine such everyday life unfolding in calm, predictable rhythm? In a moment, we'll step deeper into these spaces, but let's pause here beside the well and listen. What do you hear? The low voices of men discussing the fields. The laughter of children rolling clay toys across the ground. The splash of water as another jar is raised, tied with rope, its sides wet and gleaming. Perhaps the faint strains of music from a flute or drum in the distance. All of it blends into a lullaby of community, neither loud nor sharp, but layered and reassuring. Isn't it soothing to imagine this hum, like the sound of gentle rain on rooftops, steady and constant? Stay with me, because the social gatherings did not happen only at wells. Courtyards within homes often open to neighbors. Walls might separate families, but openings connected them, so food could be shared, words exchanged, games played. Imagine walking into such a courtyard at dusk. Lamps flicker in corners, smoke from cooking fires drifts upward. Neighbors sit together, talking softly. Someone hands you bread. Another pours water into a cup. Conversation flows like the breeze, easy and unhurried. Doesn't it comfort you to feel welcomed into a space where community is not demanded but offered freely? Let us turn toward the larger streets. Sometimes processions or gatherings took place here, not noisy parades, but steady flows of people walking together, perhaps during festivals, perhaps to mark the seasons. We cannot know their exact rituals, but we can imagine them. Lamps placed along the street, patterns of flowers scattered on the ground, neighbors walking side by side. At the heart of it, a sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than oneself. Isn't it soothing to think of walking slowly in the evening light, shoulder to shoulder with friends, the street aglow with gentle lamps? Now breathe with me as we picture evening falling fully. The courtyards are still alive, though quieter now. Neighbors sit in small groups, perhaps telling stories as the stars emerge. The children, tired from play, lean against their parents. Someone hums a tune. The air is cooler, touched by night, and the wells glimmer faintly in the moonlight. The city does not sleep yet, but it rests in shared peace. Doesn't it calm you to imagine a city not defined by walls or rules, but by these small acts of togetherness, repeated night after night? And yet, let us not forget the subtle importance of these spaces. In the gathering places, news traveled. A traveler returned from afar might share what he had seen. A craftsman displayed a new bead or tool. Farmers spoke of rains or pests, adjusting their plans together. Through conversation, the city learned, adapted, endured. Community was not only comfort, but resilience, binding lives together. Isn't it reassuring to think that survival itself was woven from conversations by wells, laughter in courtyards, nods exchanged in streets? Stay close, because there is one more layer to these places. Beyond the daily and the practical, they carried hints of the sacred. Around wells, some people left small offerings, flowers or grains, gestures of gratitude. In courtyards, trees were tended with care, perhaps seen as sacred themselves. Along streets, symbols carved into walls may have held meaning, guiding or blessing those who passed. These were not separate temples, but sacredness woven into daily life. Isn't it soothing to realize that for the Indus people, the divine may have been found not in distance, but in closeness? In every day? Now imagine leaving the gathering space at night. The well stands silent, the courtyard dim, the street quiet. Lamps are extinguished one by one. Families retreat into their homes, closing doors gently. The hum of conversation fades, replaced by the hush of night. But the sense of community remains, lingering like warmth in the air. Tomorrow, the spaces will fill again, and life will continue, steady, reassuring. Isn't it calming to know that these patterns repeated, day after day, season after season, a rhythm as sure as breathing? And so, as we close this chapter, let us carry with us the comfort of these gathering places. They remind us that civilization is not only bricks and drains, not only seals and trade, but also laughter by wells, bread shared in courtyards, stories told in lamplight. These were the heartbeats of the Indus cities, soft and steady, carrying their people through time. In the next chapter, we will step into the private side of life again, exploring the quiet rituals of rest, the rhythms of sleep, and the spaces where the Indus people found their own night's peace. For now, let the image of a moonlit courtyard stay with you. Neighbors gathered close, voices soft, water cool in the well, the city breathing calm around you. Let us move softly now into the most intimate part of the Indus Valley world, the place where every person, from the smallest child to the eldest grandparent, found rest when the day was done. You and I have wandered through streets, admired drains and wells, watched artisans at work and farmers in the fields, but all that led here, to the quiet chambers where sleep unfolded. Imagine the city after dusk. The streets that bustled during the day are nearly empty. The wells are silent, their ropes coiled. The courtyards are cooling, lamps guttering low. One by one, doors close, and behind those doors, another rhythm begins, the rhythm of sleep. I'd like you to step gently inside a home, perhaps one we have visited before. The floor is of packed earth or smooth brick. The air is still, holding the scent of the evening meal, smoke, grain, a faint sweetness of fruit. In one corner lies a platform, perhaps raised a little above the floor, covered with mats woven of reeds or cotton cloth. This is where sleep will come. Families do not sleep in isolation, but close together, sharing warmth, safety, and dreams. Can you feel the softness of lying down on a woven mat after a long day, body unwinding as the night deepens? Stay with me, because here is a gentle twist. For us, sleep often feels private, sealed behind walls and silence. But in the Indus world, it was communal, a shared act of trust and presence. A mother curls beside her child, her breath steady as his eyelids close. A father settles near, his arm resting across his family. Grandparents, too, may sleep in the same space, their breathing slower but just as sure. Imagine the comfort of hearing not only your own breath, but the breaths of those you love, weaving into one lullaby. Doesn't it calm you to picture that gentle chorus of breathing, steady and reassuring? As you lie there in your imagination, the room dark but for a faint lamp, listen for the sounds of the city at night. Somewhere far off, a dog barks once, then settles. From the cattle yard, the shuffle of hooves. Above, the soft rustle of wind through reed roofs. The city breathes as one great body, thousands of people drifting into slumber. Each household a small chamber of rest within a larger whole. In a moment, we'll walk beyond one house to the wider city again. But stay here for now, and let the rhythm of shared rest sink into you. Imagine how dreams might flow in such a world. Children drift into visions of play, perhaps imagining carts rolling endlessly or toy animals brought to life. Adults dream of their fields, their trade, their journeys. Elders dream of memories, of youth long past, of festivals, of rains and harvests. Sleep is both private and collective, each dream unique but all held within the same night sky. Isn't it soothing to picture so many people lying close together, their dreams rising like lanterns into the darkness, silent but bright? Now, step back with me into the street. The city is quiet now, lanterns extinguished, shadows deep. Only the moonlight remains, spilling onto rooftops, touching the outlines of walls. From within the houses, faint murmurs rise, the low tones of conversation before sleep, then silence, then the steady breathing of rest. The great baths are empty, their water still. Wells gleam faintly but unused. Streets lie bare, yet in that stillness, the city is alive in another way. Every household a hearth of dreams. Doesn't it comfort you to think of rest not as emptiness, but as a kind of hidden life, soft and safe? Stay with me, because there is more to notice. In many houses, mats or low beds are arranged not randomly, but carefully, aligning people with the flow of air through windows or doorways. Some sleep under thin cloths, shielding themselves from night breezes. Others, in hotter seasons, may sleep outdoors on rooftops, gazing at stars until slumber comes. Picture yourself on such a roof. The bricks are warm at first, cooling as night deepens. Above you, a sky unmarked by artificial light, alive with constellations. You hear neighbors shifting, whispering softly, then drifting off. You feel the vastness of sky, yet remain snug in your small place beneath it. Isn't that an image to carry with you into your own rest tonight? The city by night also tells us something about trust. Doors were not barred heavily, nor were walls designed for secrecy. People lived close, lives intertwined. Neighbors knew one another, shared food, spoke daily. Sleep was safe because community itself was a shield. Imagine that sense of assurance. To lie down, eyes closing, knowing your neighbor's rest just beyond the wall, your family close beside you, your city itself holding you. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine such safety, such belonging? And yet, there's another layer, ritual. We do not know the exact prayers spoken before sleep, but hints remain. Small offerings of grain, beads, or shells left in corners suggest that gratitude was part of daily life. Perhaps before lying down, someone whispered thanks to unseen powers, to the waters, the earth, the sky. Perhaps children were hushed with stories of creation, of rivers and rains, lulling them into slumber. Sleep, then, was not only rest but part of the rhythm of devotion, woven into daily cycles. Doesn't it calm you to think of lying down in gratitude as the last act of the day? As we walk once more through this night city, let's pause at the rooftops again. Picture row upon row of flat roofs, each with families asleep upon mats, some whispering under the stars, others already lost to dreams. Dogs lie curled in alleys, silent. Cattle rest in yards. The air is cooler, touched by dew, and overhead, the moon moves slowly, as it always has, watching over the sleepers. The city seems silent, yet in truth it hums with the most universal sound, the breath of thousands at rest. Isn't it soothing to imagine a whole civilization breathing together, held in the embrace of sleep? Now, take this picture with you. The Indus Valley is not only bricks, seals, or trade. It is this too, a child asleep in his mother's arms, a father whispering a last word before closing his eyes, an elder resting after a long day, neighbors sharing the same stars. This is the secret heartbeat of civilization, not loud, not grand, but soft, steady, enduring. And in knowing this, perhaps your own rest of night feels gentler, safer, more connected. In the next and final chapter, we will step back from the close detail of houses and streets and reflect on the whole arc of the civilization, how it rose, flourished, and eventually faded, leaving us with its quiet mysteries. For now, though, linger here in the night of the city, roofs lined with mats, wells still in the moonlight, families breathing steady in their dreams. You are safe, and so are they. And now, my friend, we come gently to the final stretch of our long journey together through the Indus Valley. It has been like walking hand in hand through a dream, past wells and courtyards, through markets and fields, across rooftops under stars, always with quiet comfort of knowing that life here flowed in rhythms both ancient and familiar. Tonight, as we draw near the close, let us not hurry. Instead, let us linger, just as you might linger in the last glow of lamplight before drifting off, savoring the calm, the warmth, the story that continues even in silence. At the beginning, we entered this world as strangers. We looked at bricks and drains, seals and artifacts, and wondered what they meant. But as the chapters unfolded, we discovered something softer, something human beneath the stone and clay. We found children at play, families at the hearth, farmers tending crops, artisans shaping beads, neighbors drawing water. We found that the Indus Valley, mysterious though it remains, was not defined only by its walls but by its people, by their everyday lives, their small acts of care, their steady patterns of work, rest, and gathering. Doesn't it calm you to realize that even in the oldest civilizations, life's simplest comforts are the ones that endure? Here is a quiet twist that I promise would come full circle. When we first stepped into the story, perhaps you expected monuments, grand tales of rulers, loud triumphs of history. Yet the Indus Valley left us something different. It left us a silence of absence. No known kings, no armies carved in stone, no battles sung. Instead, it left us wells, drains, weights, beads, and houses. The twist is this. Perhaps the greatness of the civilization was not in conquest, but in balance, not in loud power, but in quiet order. Isn't that soothing, to think that a society could thrive through cooperation and care, rather than domination? Stay with me, because this gentle realization holds a kind of hope. We live in a world that often remembers noise, the battles, the rulers, the storms of history. But here, in the Indus Valley, the story is written in calm. Cities laid out with care, streets clean with drains, water shared through wells, weights calibrated for fair trade. This was a civilization built on trust, order, and community. Its greatness is not erased by mystery, but amplified by it. Even in the absence of names or songs, the people's presence lingers, like the warmth of a hearth long after the fire has dimmed. Doesn't it soothe you to know that quiet lives can echo through millennia? As we reflect on this, picture yourself standing at the edge of the city one last time. Behind you, the streets and homes stretch in orderly lines, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Before you, the fields roll outward, touched by night dew. Beyond them, rivers flow endlessly. The Indus, the Ravi, the Sutlej carry with them fragments of stories, whispers of lives lived long ago. You breathe deeply, feeling the calm of water, earth, and sky woven together. You realize that the story of the Indus is not closed, but ongoing, carried in each fragment of pottery, each baked brick, each seal etched with a mysterious sign. Doesn't it calm you to imagine that history, like sleep, is a continuum always flowing? Let's turn the lamp a little lower, because we are nearly at the close. Think back on all we have seen. The great baths where people may have gathered for ritual cleansing, the artisans shaping tiny beads of carnelian, the farmers bending to tend barley and wheat, the traders guiding ox carts through city gates, the children with their toys rolling wheels across the ground, the neighbors gathered by wells, voices weaving into evening air, the families sleeping on rooftops beneath the stars. All of these scenes come together like threads, forming a tapestry both intricate and gentle. And the tapestry whispers, life was lived here fully, quietly, beautifully. In a moment, we'll step beyond this story. But before we do, imagine standing in a deserted street of Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa. The bricks are worn but still aligned. The drains run straight, though silent now. The wells stand empty, their ropes gone. Yet if you close your eyes, you can almost hear it again. The laughter of children, the murmur of traders, the splash of water, the low notes of a flute. These echoes remind us that history does not vanish. It lingers, like breath on cool glass, like footprints soft in the dust. Isn't it soothing to hold those echoes close, as though the past leans forward to keep you company? And so, my friend, as we reach the close of this long, gentle journey, let me reassure you, you have walked through more than history tonight. You have walked through a world of connection, of trust, of quiet brilliance. You have seen that civilizations are not only measured by their rulers or their ruins, but by their people, their sleep, their work, their gatherings, their care. You are safe to carry this with you now, as you rest. The Indus Valley reminds us that calm, order, and community are as enduring as stone. Doesn't it ease you to know that across time and distance, we are linked by the simplest acts of living? Now let the city fade from view. Imagine the rooftops dissolving into mist, the wells fading into quiet, the courtyards dimming. The rivers flow on, steady and eternal. The stars shine overhead, as they always have. And you, resting here, are part of that same rhythm. You have traveled far, but you are not tired. You are soothed, lulled, ready for sleep. The story does not end. It simply folds into your own night, blending history and dream. And as you drift, remember this. Just as the Indus people laid bricks, one upon another, to build homes and streets, you too build peace moment by moment, breath by breath. Tonight, your rest is part of that ancient continuity. Sleep gently, my friend. Sleep knowing you are connected to all who have ever closed their eyes on the stars, in every city, in every age. The Indus Valley breathes with you still, and in that shared breath, you are safe. Thank you for walking this journey with me. I'll be here again with another story, another river of calm to follow. For now, let the lamp go out, let the night embrace you, and let your dreams carry you deeper into peace. Good night.